Greetings, Siege fans, and welcome to Project Luna, sponsored by Cracked Media and Arrival 7 Esports. I'm your cast for today, Baba Gustav, with my co-caster Ticked Off, as we are here to talk about our three amazing matches that's going to happen right now on stream, where the total prize pool of this tournament is 500 euros. So, Ticked Off, welcome to this tournament. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm well. It's morning for me, unlike everyone else, but I'm up and
Mhm.
refreshed, and I'm just ready to see some good Siege again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a long time. And of course, with the new rework for Siege X, we're going to see a lot of changes happening in the history of Rainbow Six Siege, which means that there will be a lot of changed metas. I mean, especially with new operators, new changes, new reworks. I really can't wait to see the three matches that we're going to have. So I would say the first matchups, it will be up against Team Wildcard versus Kitten Queen. So I've got to ask it off, what are your opinions about these matchups?
Well, obviously we haven't seen a lot of Siege in the region for Women's League Siege, so while these teams are filled with players that we've seen historically in the past, we haven't seen them play in a hot minute. So still looking forward to seeing these teams perform like they always have, but also there's that surprise factor. What have they been doing? Have they been preparing for Siege X? Are they going to get caught out lacking? These are questions that we don't have the answers to, and we're about to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, this is also my first time, casting a tournament for, especially in the women's league. So I'm really excited to see the amazing play style that's happening right here on Project Luna. So all in all, like I said, we've been, excited about the new rework for Siege X, especially with the huge audio changes as well as the changes in gadgets with Kaid and Bandit. So especially talking about those changes, do you think maybe we could see a lot of metas being changed for CJX?
I mean, I don't see anything on a larger scale, sort of, monumentally shifting. I think that a lot of these core operators that we see haven't been changed in a way that discourage or overtly encourage their bringing or their banning or their leaving out. I think obviously we're going to see maybe small changes, maybe operators that are preferred over others historically when, they've been on the cusp of being good enough or they've been just there, but like not quite making that threshold. However, what I am excited to see, of course, with CJ changes is how people react to the new environmental changes. So it seems really small, but those fire extinguishers leaving a cloud of smoke or
Yeah.
across the map, of course, that's something that teams haven't contended with before. And it seems really, really minor, but it is something that you have to be considerate about. And so I'm really excited to see how, even if that doesn't change their overarching strategy, how teams will adapt. How do you adapt to a defender being able to suddenly make smoke in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of sight? Like these minor things can be the difference between a round win and a round loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that the neutral gadgets that are currently present and placed in certain few choke points of those maps could clearly determine a win lose situation between the attackers as well as the defenders. So I'm really excited to see how well those changes will occur. And also, we do have a changes in bans as well, if I recall properly, because previously we only had like two bans on attackers, two bans on defense. Right now, it's three bans, and this happens on each and every single round. So I would say that the changes and adaptations for these matchups will definitely be interesting, because we could see a lot of changes that could be made accordingly to round wise. So what do you think about that?
I mean, again, like whenever you have these changes or these abilities to make changes on a smaller level, there's so much more interaction from a strategy point of view. So going all the way back when we didn't have attacker repick and we had six pick, there was a large amount of strategy, but that had to happen at the beginning. You had to pocket pick an operator. People had to unexpected. But now attackers can change the entire lineup in response to what the defenders are bringing. And now, as you've mentioned, there's even more flexibility to make these changes on this micro scale. And so it'll be exciting to see this interaction between overarching strategy, the things that teams have scrimmed for, the things that they've practiced, the things that they know and they love and they trust, between these sort of, we lost this round, we need to make a Hail Mary, we're going to do something crazy, and that keeps the game exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, how can I not forget about the massive rework for Clash, where you can actually place the shields and basically use it as your own personal deployable shield. It's definitely game changing, and I'm pretty excited to see what kind of operators do we get to expect to see here on CJX. But yeah, all in all, once again, hopefully we'll get to take a look at the three matches that we're going to have, the three matches that we will be having for our day two. I believe we have six matches in total right now. Three matches currently being casted, especially on this stream with two of the other casters. I believe it's Happy and Jazzman, and of course, this is our once again the stream B, Baba Gusta, as well as my co-caster ticked off. So matches, three matches for the day: Wildcard versus Kitten Queens, and the second matchup will be A7 versus Kitten Queens, and of course the third matchup will be Kitten Queens, who's going up against Team SX. So we have three matches for the side of Team Kitten Queens, and of course the prize pool itself is 500 euros. That is a massive prize pool. So I gotta ask, which team are you rooting for, ticked off?
Um, I don't think I can answer this question. A lot of the players in this tournament I know like one on one outside of Siege. So I'm going to defer to my better judgment, and I'm not going to give an answer just yet.
hmm Well, hopefully, with the stats that's been provided right here from, especially from our team A and of course, inside of team B, we're definitely going to, take a look at the way how it works, especially from the side of Team Kitten Queens. We have Secret, Impala, Tex, Bully, Mine, Cass, and of course, Sleepy Stormy.
Again, a bunch of these players were seen in the past. So excited to see exactly what happens in this tournament, what has changed, and what has stayed the same.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see, since this is my first time entering into casting the matches for Women's League. I'm really quite excited to see what type of play styles we get to expect from this specific team. I'm really excited, and of course we have the best map, of course, Border. So, and also the worst map, which will be on Clubhouse. So I'm guessing that especially on the matchup that we will get to see here between Team Kitten Queens versus Wildcard, I believe Clubhouse will be the map which will be picked. Band wise, we're not going to see Lair, we're not going to see Skyscraper, nor Chalet. So Clubhouse, the most infamous maps that's been being played all the way from the beginning, right?
Absolutely, yep. It has stayed in the Pro League rotation since its conception and has never left it. I believe it's the only map to have done so. Clubhouse is an interesting map, as even though there was that major rework, it has still stayed quite consistent after that. And it's getting close, I suppose, to this idea of a solved map. While Siege always has flexibility in operators and what you do, there's a lot of consistency when it comes to Clubhouse. And that can lead to some really, really good Siege when you don't have a lot of
Mhm.
options for this pocket pick or unique strategy like you do on the newer maps. You have to play perfectly. You have to do everything right. Of course, in contrast, if you do find something unique, if you do find something crazy, it can be a tremendous upset, as teams that have played Clubhouse for years simply don't expect it. And it always leads to great Siege.
Absolutely, and let's not forget about the neutral gadgets as well, ticked off. And I'm pretty sure that the massive changes, especially on environment effects on a map like Clubhouse, will definitely be a sight to behold. But further anymore, folks, hopefully we'll be able to get the match up and running. So the first matchup, it'll be up against Team Wildcards versus Team Kitten Queens. The map will be on Clubhouse. So once we get the information, once we get the information regarding the matchups, we will definitely head into the match right now. But I have to say, like, this is definitely an exciting one for me. I mean, since I believe, TikTok, you did say that it was 5 a.m. in the morning, right?
Well, 6:50 a.m. in the morning now,
Oh,
but
all right, it's
yes,
6:50
I
a.m.
did
All
have a
right.
bit of an early wake up.
Mm. Yeah, from my end, I think it's from my end. I believe it's 12 a.m. So it's pretty much Sunday from from my end, especially on IST. But yeah, once again, really excited. So hopefully, the first matchup is all being on Clubhouse, neutral gadgets, changes in operators, and of course, massive changes on the maps as well. So really can't wait to see what's going to happen though here. Yeah, yeah. So, folks, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it turns out we have some slight hiccup that is happening from the team's end, which means that we might have to take a short little break. So, please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back as soon as possible. All right, folks, welcome back. And once again, we are not going to waste any time at all with the first round itself between Team Wildcard Queens versus Team Kitten Queen. The first round itself being on map Clubhouse. And I believe we've already got to see the ban phase that's happening from their end as well. So, yeah, talking about it right now, ticked off. Looking at it right now, there's really great bans coming in. Ace and Maverick being banned on attack, and of course, Clash and Kaid on defense.
Yep. And again, like you said, going into Clubhouse, it's a map that we've seen time and time again, and they are sticking to what works. We've seen extension, and already Smoke's going to get that early kill, but will get traded out, making it back into a 4v4. And this is exactly how it goes. You know, you extend into cache, into CCTV when you're doing a bedroom haul. All of these operators look fairly standard. But again, kill after kill after kill early on in the round is exactly what makes these sort of final pushes significantly more exciting and more tense, and that's the variance that you'll get. Mute staying alive in this situation is really, really huge for the defenders. However, we have it 3v3, but of course, Siege is non-standard. It's not equal. Defenders have a huge advantage as they run down the clock. If Mute can stay alive for a little bit longer here, keep this extension, stop Thatcher from pushing up, this could be really, really strong for the side of Wildcard Queens.
Yep, looks like the control on second floor cache is a very difficult situation for Kitten Queens to even progress even further. But looks like there's an opening being found out, and to be honest, the Thatcher will definitely make sure to find its important mark. But there is still Mute. Cass, she is still present in cache room, and this is going to cause major problems. Great spray from the SMG-11. Also, the shotgun to confirm the kill, but an immediate trade-outs will be made from Triple Mel's to ensure that it's not going to happen. Only 10 seconds left. The site's on second floor gym, and I'm pretty sure that the site being held up. Oryx, all she needs to do is just hold on, but no, an aggressive peaks will be made, securing the first frag. And I believe for the attackers, this will be their first round win coming in from their end.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we didn't see the beginning. We didn't see what led to the situation that we had there. We got thrust into things, so it's a little bit chaotic. But that's exactly how some of these rounds go. You know, you've cleared the utility, you're down to the wire, it's a 1v1, you have no time on the clock. Sometimes as an attacker, you just have to go for that kill. And of course, we saw on the side of defense positioning there to hopefully deny a plant if it was going to go down, to stop it from getting down. Because of course, once the attackers get that diffuser down, that power dynamic changes. From every second being beneficial to the defenders, it's now beneficial to the attackers. So there was a read there, making sure that the defenders were able to deny a plant if it was to go down. But of course, attackers realizing this knew that they had to swing, knew that they went for their kill, and it paid off big time. It is a gamble. If there were no defenders to be found, if you can't get those last kills, you just lose on time. But of course, if you can get that kill, it's so much safer than trying to plant and just being completely exposed as you don't have your gun out.
Yeah. I have to say, in the first round itself, a really great job for Cass to, hunker down the site all the way from second floor cache. She did somehow secure in basically denying a lot of time for the attackers. And and because of it, they did try their little best to hold their ground, but turns out we didn't get to see that in the first round itself. But yeah, once again, we are back again in the Cassis cam. But I have to say, the first round itself, it was looking really well from both the sides. Map Clubhouse, the first round itself on attack, very close range encounters on second floor gym. And the first round itself, for a brief moment, I thought that we would have been able to see the defenders secure their first round win. But sometimes aggressiveness definitely helps in securing most of the stuff. But all in all, I have to say the first round itself, I need to ask TikTok, especially with the way how they made that push, right? Second floor, gym and bedroom. Usually, in order to have access to second floor gym and bedroom, you need to make sure you would have at least a time of 1 minute and 30 seconds, or at least a minimum of 1 minute to ensure that you have access on the site, right? But because of Cass holding all the way from second floor cash, really did provide a lot of problems for the attackers. So I have to say, on the second round, since we would have like a simple ban phase of two operators on first round, second and third round will be no bans. Round number four, it will be yet again with another two bans. So I have to ask, according to your prediction wise, TikTok map, especially on round number three, what do you think that the operator's ban would be present here on Map Clubhouse?
I think that we just don't have enough information to see what exactly they're going to change out. I think a map like Clubhouse, like I sort of said at the beginning, is so standard that these changes in strategy that tend to happen when you see something incredibly oppressive happen quite limited, happen quite rarely on Clubhouse, just because you tend to expect a lot of these things. If I'm looking at this operator lineup that we sort of saw for a brief moment as to what might be really, really damaging, historically we've seen Grim and Grim's presence be incredibly, incredibly intimidating, as he's able to just get so much information, so much utility, especially when you're going for those last second executes. But of course, all of this information can still be garnered from drones, from other intel getting operators. He might be really powerful at it, but it's certainly not like he's this unique operator that completely changes the game. And so I find it hard to definitively say this operator will be oppressive on Clubhouse, this operator will be oppressive on Clubhouse, because I think that oppressiveness on Clubhouse at this point tends to come more from the teams playing a perfect game or a good game of Siege rather than any sort of unique half-baked strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do actually have a follow-up question with it, but for the folks watching the stream right now, if you guys are wondering what exactly happened on round number two, well, we have a slight technical issues that's happening. So like once we get those issues fixed, we are not going to waste any time at all and immediately proceed to round number three and four. So until then, we are back here from the casters camp with me, Baugusta, as well as TikTok. But yeah, continuing the conversation, I do have to say, like especially when it comes to the operator bans, it really depends on the type of operator do they pick. So I would say, like for an example, on round number one, I believe when it comes to breaching the walls towards the jacuzzi side, I'm pretty sure that the attackers, not jacuzzi side, I'm gonna release. I believe it was on second floor, the second floor side near cash room. So breaching that wall for the attackers, they didn't have a lot of problems, so they won't go in for a bandit ban. But if they're having a lot of drone problems where they're not having a lot of information regarding with players positionings, maybe they could go in with a mute ban that could at least help them in gathering info very quickly, having an entrance towards the site, and of course having a higher chances to succeed in post plant. So yeah, once again folks, we might have to go in for yet another break again. I do have to apologize for a slight technical pauses that we're having from our end, but do not worry, we'll be right back as soon as possible. Back, and also we're going to continue round number three, where we did get to see, although we didn't get to see the information regarding with Wild Queens securing round number two, we are going to resume round number three nonetheless. The site will be on second floor cash room. So I have to say here, ticked off, it's going to be a nice one. I mean, it's 1-1. Bans will be the same. Of course, we're going to have the bans hopefully in the next round itself. So yeah, let's see what round number three has in store for us.
Exactly. And of course, like you said, we're going to CCTV and cache, a staple of Clubhouse. Saw a couple of swaps over there, but nothing too out of the unordinary. We saw a swap of RAM. I assume they thought they were going basement, but found out that that wasn't the case. I'm going to start off with the classic face-off between the Thermite and the Bandit and the Thatcher, and see if they can get this ball open. Attackers have a lot of utility here, of course. They don't have a Maverick on the board, but they do have a Thatcher, they do have a Twitch, and they do have the capacity to just go below and clear those bandit batteries. Of course, that's why the Azami is playing over here, denying intel, denying presence. We also have the Jaeger down there to really, really be oppressive right below. And now we see at the same time that they're doing this, they're unable to get the wall open just yet. We do see a Capitao sort of getting these picks off, getting these little shots out here on rafters. If he's able to land a firebolt charge, could push this player off rafters, but we'll rather not do that. We'll force the bandit off the wall and they'll get the wall open. So they do have flat wall open, incredibly strong, something that you want to do straight away, but they still have this player alive on rafters, which could be quite problematic if they were looking to go for more traditional execute. Of course, these drones out here opening Waji hatch, we might see a player just repelling, playing on plat. We might see a construction take to avoid a lot of this sort of downstairs pressure and rafters pressure.
Yep. And right now, with time ticking down to 1 minute and 16 seconds, you clearly see that patience is definitely going to help around here, especially for the defenders. Bully will secure the first frag out, this time taking out the important operator, Ellie. The Brava, which could have been so helpful in disabling, or should I say, capturing one of the most important defensive utilities that would have been favorable for them. But for the attackers, time is running out, but at least they've managed to open up a breach, and they've also got the second kill here, this time with the Thermite. Taking out Oryx, this would cause a lot of hassle around here because I believe Cass has no idea where Trippy is, and she will ensure that the kill will be taken. 35 seconds, another breach will be made towards the side itself, and now the pressure is on. 30 seconds opened up. Bully, she's got to be careful on a certain lines of sight, and here comes Trippy Mills once again, taking out Scammy. Now it's a 2v4 Wildcard Queens. They've got to be careful because right now they're losing a lot of bodies, and because of it, the attackers are looking so well. Garage will be taken from Anika. It's a 1v4. It's all up to Secret. And a 1v4 clutch for this to happen. They have all the information. All you need to do is just ensure that the denial will be present. Time is inevitable and looks like the kill will be made nonetheless. Kitten Queens securing a round number 2 on second floor cash.
Yeah, and sometimes it is just a numbers game. I was wondering how exactly Kitten Queens would respond to having that Rafters player up and alive, but of course they got those picks out, they whittled down the numbers, and they forced Wildcard Queens to retreat. And as I say that, anyway, we're going straight into these mid-game bans that you talked about. We see the Hibana and the Zami going out. This is quite interesting. Wildcard Queens looking at this sort of Hibana and Azami, getting rid of these operators, perhaps worried about potential problems later on in the round. Of course, Azami was quite impactful on that CC hold and very, very strong on basement. Having all of these Azami barricades lined up in this hallway, in basement hallway, all around site, can be really, really problematic for attackers. So I think that Kitten Queen spanning out Azami is a no-brainer. I think that she's incredibly powerful on a lot of sites, but especially basement. And in contrast, we see Wildcard Queen spanning out the Hibana. This is somewhat interesting to me because, of course, with impact tricking, I think that you can deal with a lot of these Hibana pellets, especially with a Maestro. You can zap them out, you can get rid of them. But of course, with the Hibana changes, with you able to fire one pellet at a time, impact tricking's usefulness has significantly deteriorated. So maybe Wildcard Queens is saying, look, they're going to clear the Maestro cameras, we can't impact trick forever, we're just going to ban out the Hibana, which means if you want to open the hatches, you're going to have to use a lot more limited utility in the side of these can openers, in the side of more traditional hard breaches, like Thermite and Ace, which of course Kitten Queens has not brought out. So we'll see exactly how they approach it. Are they still able to get all of these hatches open? On the side of, you have RAM, you have a lot of utility clear, and of course the kite is banned. So we'll see exactly how Wildcard Queens responds here.
Yep. And also, let's not forget, 3 attack bans, all 3 of them are hard breach bans, which means that the attackers have no other choice but to rely on secondary hard breach. And with it, there will be a lot of changes in operators itself. I mean, you clearly get to see Recruit being picked up from Trippy Mel's. You also have the Twitch, which is really powerful in taking out important, utilities that's currently being present from Cass's end, the Maestro's camp, in which Brava could have been really helpful in trying to capture one of those important Maestro Evil Eye camps. But now, focusing on the round at hand, currently we can clearly get to see that the hatches have been opened up. So is the removal of the Vulcan canisters, thanks to the Twitch's drones. And with it, they just have to wait for 20 seconds for the fire to dissipate. Once that happens, they'll be free and able to push in. And I just realized Brava is also present there as well. I do have to apologize for that. Brava would definitely be helpful in capturing the Maestro's Eagle Eye camps. And just like you said, the abilities, which will definitely be a lot of pain, especially from Bully's end.
Of course, they weren't able to get the ADS down. We saw the Brava fall, and now we'll see, Mute fall, but we still have this generator player able to hold with those ADSs. They were clearing out a lot of that utility because generator can be a very, very strong position to hold. But of course, when you don't have any more utility left, if you have no more ADSs, you don't have the mute jammers, then find out where you are, it can be very, very problematic. All of a sudden, this really stronghold goes to a suicide position. And here we have going straight through the drop, through the smoke, looking for pick, but doesn't have the intel on the generator player. And Jaeger will get the kill, losing a little bit of health to the smoke, but it doesn't matter. Smoke, kill after kill after kill, not using the gas canisters to deny, but using kills to deny. And now we see that 1v4 situation all again. It's strikers, and this is quite limited utility. And of course, having used it throughout the round, there's not too much she can do to make a comeback. And the Maestro impacts will come out and will end Striker, and that is the end to round 4.
Yep. Great defensive hold from the side of Team Wildcard Queens, being able to patiently wait for the right moment to push in. And of course, vertical lines of sight was also been perfectly made from Kitten Queens. They've made sure to, show their, presence towards kitchen as well as on main entrance. But it always comes down to the part where they start to once they start to execute from the site, that's exactly where most of the problems did happen. Of course, the smoke gas canisters were present, so were a total of 3 ADSs that were present from the blue stairs, making it much more difficult from the side of Team Kitten Queens to make a lot of progress towards the site. But all in all, hopefully on round number 5 we might see some changes, especially in the operators wise. So yeah, second floor gym is the site once again. And talking about the operators itself, you still have the bandit for tricking, you still have Cass, she's still picking mute, especially for denials for utilities such as hard breach, or maybe trying to cancel out the drones to give less amount of information for the attackers.
Absolutely, and we do see a couple of operator changes. Of course, we don't have a castle on the side of Wildcard Queens. I believe that was brought on the first round. We no longer see a Zofia, though we do see an Ashe. Obviously, very, very similar utility. It's not a huge amount of changes. I do think it's somewhat interesting, as Zofia can be hugely monumental in assisting in getting Jacuzzi Wall. But regardless, we're getting straight into things. Found out that CCTV player, and this time we'll see a Secret in the position in CCTV, which of course was played by Kaz last round. And we'll see how long Wildcard Queens are able to hold this position. Cass is going to get the opening kill, and that's going to be so beneficial for the side of Wildcard Queens, whittling down those numbers from the get-go. But there will be an answer back on the side of Kitten Queens. It's 4-4. Notably, the attackers still have yet to take space. If Wildcard Queens are able to get another pick out and hold this position, it could be extremely beneficial. But of course, they had an incredibly monumental position last time we saw this exact round being played, and Kitten Queens just went frag after frag after frag and was able to close the round out. So we'll see if that will happen again. And there's going to be no risk just yet. Taps, bullets coming out, drones flying. They know where they are. Everyone knows where everyone is. But can any of these players line up their crosshairs? Can they get a kill? Can they take the CCTV cache from the side of Wildcard Queens early without losing too many numbers?
Oh boy, we're about to find out. Let's not forget, Cass's SMG plays has been so exceptional in the first round itself. Maybe we might see another time. No, it's Secret's turn to prove usefulness, especially with the MPX. Great shot. We're able to deny one. Cass's C4, will that connect? No, it actually catches on the top of the floorboard. I mean, not the floor, basically the ceiling. So Right now, they're just going to play patiently, but turns out it's working out well. 45 seconds left. Kitten Queens are losing a lot of time, and they're having a lot of problems to have access of second floor cash. You can clearly see how Cash has been really powerful. Push will be made, and here comes Secret with the save. So is Cash. Beautiful line of sight. It's 1v4. It's all up to the sledge. A 1v4 situation which will be very difficult, and only having 20 seconds left for her to make her move. Yeah, 20 seconds. It's it really. I'm not gonna lie. It will be difficult. I'm pretty sure it will be none other than team. No, from the side of team Wildcard Queens, who's gonna win it. Great pistol shot, sprints away to safety to try to catch the diffuser, but in the end, it will be none other than the defenders who will win round number 5.
And Sledge was caught in a little bit of a hard place over there. Of course, when you have such a dominant crossfire, you kind of have to just go for it, and that's exactly what happened, going for the pistol kill, getting it. But of course, there are other defenders on the board, so able to secure one kill, but not able to secure the round. There's only so much you can do. It's a 1v4, there's no time on the clock. It's such a difficult situation, and with that, Wildcard Queens puts another round under their belt. And we're going to go back here to the side of CCTV. Again, we saw a few rounds ago, but of course, we have no Azami this time. While that Azami can be extremely problematic in positions that the Azami holds, we didn't see any barricades and rafters. We saw them largely below in lounge. And of course, last time, Kitten Queens chose to neglect taking below, neglect taking that early rafters pressure, and instead went for a construction take. So ordinarily, that ban might have changed things up quite substantially, but I don't think it will, other than just a simple operator change. But we'll see how this plays out. Of course, with Kitten Queens doing the take that they did last time, will Wildcard Queens expect it, and how will they respond? And of course, we're starting again with this classic trade-off between the Talented and the Thermite. We have the Capitao once again on the board. The Capitao is able to flush this bandit out. The wall might get open just as it was previously, and that's exactly what Capitao is going to be angling for. But maybe Bully is aware, if Bully is able to get this pick, it could be extremely problematic for the side of Kitten Queens.
Yep. Well, I believe the secondary hard breach will be used towards the garage's side. And since Azami is banned, like you said, ticked off, it will at least help them in gaining easier access towards garage. But, they still need to worry about Scammy's positioning, who's currently in from, below side of garage. Bandit Trick still being, available towards the second floor CCTV, which makes it much more difficult from the side of the attackers to make their play. Sure, Thatcher is available, so is the Twitch's shock drones. It's just they need to ensure that they find a proper angle or an opening to see whether they could find out. Capitao's fireballs are also present, so once that fire is being used, they might be able to get something good out of it. There you go, one fireball being used. That will definitely flush out Bandit. And the Bandit charges still being present. The Thatcher's EMP will ensure to disable it, use the Thermite's exothermic charge, and just blow it up. But turns out there might be some slight problematic situation here coming in from the side of Kitten Queen, so another attempt will be made from the fire.
Yes, the Thatcher isn't around here to help Thermite get the wall open, so it will stay closed. I think potentially there might have been a call by the side of Kitten Queens to rotate all their players around construction, flush out this construction player, instead use this hard breach utility over there, and we see the first of those neutral gadgets going out, which will force this player back into sight. Bully does get a kill on the Capitao though, so that fire is no longer in play. I don't know if Capitao had a bolt left, but regardless of if that was the case or not, it's not going to be used. And here we see that construction take that we talked about just before. Jaeger is on the flank. If Kitten Queens has not set up their flank drones properly, that kill might not matter because Jaeger's going to turn it into a 4v2 and looking for a 4v1, but narrowly isn't able to secure it. But even if Jaeger dies here, and Jaeger will fall, Jaeger's done exactly what they need to do, but he'll get closed out by an aggressive swing from the smoke. And that flank is something that you do need to watch out in a map like Clubhouse. You have two staircases for these defenders to get up. You need to have flying drones. You need to have these things watch, because even if that Jaeger wasn't able to get any kills, simply wasting that much time is brutal. And of course, we're back to a second ban phase, and we'll see what exactly happens.
Yep. The second ban phase itself, since we do have our role swaps, it's Kitten Queens' time to be defending the site. And also, I actually got a little bit excited, mainly because of the way how that wall bang happened from the thermite. It's just sometimes the thing about Siege is that it's like surprises out of nowhere. It's like randomly you're just running around from site to site, and then just suddenly you get accidentally shot through a wall in which the attacker just accidentally shoots at you, and somehow you get a kill from out of it. But yeah, talking about the flank though from Diego, a like really great job on not only denying the push that was happening towards construction, but it gave even much more time for Wildcard Queens to be defending the site on defense. So being able to end the first half on a 4-2 scoreline will definitely give a lot of boost to ensure that they'll be able to win a lot of attack rounds as well in the second half. But once again, taking a look at the bans itself, we can clearly see that two of the hard breaches, Ace and Hibana, has been banned. So is the Kaid and Azami. Azami, once again, really powerful on Garage, especially with the Kiba barriers. She'll be able to hold the site all by herself. And it's a very powerful position for Azami, where it will be much more difficult for the attackers, where they have no other choice but to keep expending their magazines in order to remove at least one cure barriers. And plus, they'll even have much more problems because they still need to deal with the site as well. So removing Azami right off the bat could at least help the attackers in focusing more on the site. But how would they deal with Mira? And of course, Fenrir is the biggest question here.
I mean, the mirror is honestly not that problematic of a situation to deal with all of the changes. You have a Sophia here. You have a number of operators that can deal with the mirror, even just the frag grenades, even just, running up and knifing it. And I think that's exactly what they're going to try and go for. But of course, it can still be problematic if you aren't able to close up the mirror. Now, we will not see a full top-down clear from the side of Wildcard Queens. There are any roamers on the top floor, which I don't think there are, that could potentially be problematic later on. We see these lounge players just tapping out but not sort of committing. It's kind of what you have to do on Clubhouse. A little bit of damage traded, but this Valkyrie will still be alive. Of course, they now know that she's on that top floor. Roaming on the basement side is quite difficult because the attackers can cut you off so brutally, and that's exactly why the Legion ran back to site, not wanting to go for an extended trade and get caught out. But of course, this Valkyrie staying alive, staying on this top floor, but not staying alive, will be the Finca getting traded out by that Melusi. If Valkyrie is able to stay alive, stay evading for a little bit longer, this could be a very brutal collapse on Wildcard Queens from the side of Kitten Queens. But of course, we'll see how it goes out. One pick already going out this early is really beneficial for the side of Kitten Queens. Of course, are they able to clear all of this utility and generator, or are they just going to go for something completely different? It looked like Finca was sort of angling for a little bit of main presence there, but with that Finca traded out, is Wildcard Queens going to rotate around to generator? Are they going to play out this utility like you said, the Fenrir and the Mira? Well, we're about to see.
Yep. A lot of damage has been dealt around, and already Wildcard Queens have already lost two of their important players. But turns out Secret and Cass have an answer of their own. 3v3, man count equalized. Annika's, with the help of the information, is definitely helping. But look at Trippy Mills once again, headshot to take out Cass. While Secret, down on HP, the C4 will catch one. So is Ellie, getting another frag as well, making sure that Kitten Queens will survive the basement site. And of course, they will proceed to the next site, which will be on second floor CCTV. I believe I would say second floor gym and bedroom. I was about to say CCTV because it's usual picks that we go on a map like Clubhouse. It's either basement, second floor CCTV, or second floor gym. Although it's very rare to see the first floor site being picked. So we'll only rarely get to see the first floor site only when the attackers have successfully defended each and every site. And in order to get that, Maybe we might get it, maybe not. Only time will tell.
And talk about that neutral utility. We see Bandit getting rid of that gas canister from the get-go, perhaps foreseeing that it could be quite problematic, attempting to ban the trick, and I think that that's exactly the right thing to do. I don't know how much utility the position would have for the defender side. Of course, it would be quite difficult to trigger to stop a Russian from breach, so I think that's exactly what you need to do. And being cognizant of these things early is so crucial, because of course it can bite you later on if you aren't able to be aware of it. So we'll see what Kitten Queens' take is on the gym bedroom hold. I was going to say there'd be a reinforcement out from CCTV, but it doesn't look like that has been done. I don't know if Annika was looking to do that and decided not to because a little bit low on time, or if Hidden Queens simply don't go for a hold like that. And that's quite interesting, and we'll see how it plays off. Giving up a CCTV hold and of course give the attackers a lot of space, and we'll see if Wildcard Queens quickly capitalizes on that and exactly how they decide to do things. Of course, with the Maverick on the board, getting open Jacuzzi wall will be a breeze, and of course with CCTV wall being completely solved, Wildcard Queens has already made a decent amount of progress in setting up for this site exit. I think Maverick's got a little bit left, not quite able to get the open, but Thermite will just make that so much easier. And here we have the Mira just waiting to see if we're going to see any early pushes. But I don't think they will. I think that Wildcard Queens is just looking to clear out numbers, clear out utility before they do anything too crazy.
Yeah, the problem has to be the Mira window itself, right? But talking about the first frag itself, Castle, all the way towards construction, I believe, will be taken out. And so is the Twitch. Another kill. Great shot from Annika, ensuring that the SMG-11 will find its mark. I believe a peek will be made towards the outside of window. Just needs that perfect timing. Peeks again. No, sees it, but the timing does not work out. Bully gets it. 2v2. This time Wildcard Queens has the advantage at this point. It's just the C4 could be a massive issue here. It's all up to Ellie. The Mira in play, the flashbangs being able to block out important lines of sight, and now Mira is dazed and confused. No information. Dual peeks being made from Wildcards, and they will ensure victory will be in their hands. Securing the site of second floor gym and bedroom, I believe we might go in with the same site once again.
And yeah, no, Wildcard Queens wasn't taking any chances. They knew where the Mira was. They flashed her out. They pushed together, and that's exactly what you need to do. Of course, we've seen that all of these players on both teams are incredibly capable in their own right. And Wildcard Queens wasn't looking to take any chances. They weren't going to flash, sprint at the Mira. We didn't see any ego peaks out there. We just saw a classic and well thought out ending to that round, ensuring that they put another round under their pocket, and that's exactly what you want to see. That's exactly how you avoid mistakes and upsets. And we'll go back, like you said, to this gem bedroom site, and we do see a little bit of operator changes. We see Annika going for that Wamai instead of the mute. Interesting to see if this is able to help the Mira stay alive, help all of them stay alive, and have that utility on board. And of course, these castles on these windows is going to help Bandit keep the wall closed, requiring more utility to clear those batteries out. That being said, once again, Wildcard Queens is bringing the Maverick, so I don't think they'll have too much difficulty opening these walls. However, we now see that CCTV extension. While we did see Annika playing sort of top red, looking for his fix, and she's suddenly able to get it, having these walls reinforced, having them electrified, is going to help Kitten Queens hold that position for so much longer. And we'll see if that extra time allows them to win this round as we go back to the site that we just saw previously.
Special charge, stay clear.
And I believe it shouldn't be a problem for the Heart Breachers to secure the walls towards Jacuzzi, and also as well as from the other side of the map. But all in all, the biggest question has to be the Mira placements that's currently present on second floor gym. I mean, the previous round, they didn't have any problems with it. No flashbang, immediate control of both the sites, and they definitely cleared it out without having any major issues whatsoever. It was a 2v2 situation. One of them were already downed, and now Especially in this round, I can clearly see that they will take their sweet time with taking out important castle barricades, which will be immediately destroyed thanks to Sledge's hammer. And with it, they have important lines of sight. The biggest question is who will receive the first pick. I would say that for the attackers, they've opened up important lines of sights. They have proper planning. They even have drone works to give them vital information on flanks, as well as the information on the site as well. All they have to do is just figure out a way to remove a player or two to give them the advantage that they need. And looks like the Melusi might think of going a little bit too aggressive from her end, but she's just going to back away safely and ensure to play accordingly with time.
Absolutely. Contesting that plat player on Repel is incredibly difficult. I think Melusi was just seeing that she was able to secure a kill out there, recognized that she wasn't able to, and backed off. And I think that's probably the right play, as we can see Bully playing on this window as that Sledge. If Melusi stayed out there, could have gotten caught out. And here we see the reason why they were droning out and securing this below pressure. Buck was able to open the mirror from below, from that line of sight that you were talking about. And while that's not the end of the world, especially with 30 seconds remaining and so much utility still up from the defenders, Bully not able to get that kill just yet, but will finish it off later on. They have 25 seconds to close this out, and that pick is going to keep the defenders in this game. And the defenders are just looking to get back on site and try and turtle and try and hold off these last 15 seconds. That extension into logistics, trying to get that pick won't work out. But the attackers will be the one to close it out, even with so much utility online, even with not a lot of time on the board, even with losing your initial pressure into CCTV. At the end of the day, Siege is an FPS game. And if you're able to get the skills, you're able to get the round wins. So, and yeah, we see another attacker victory. Wildcard Queens getting closer to winning this. We'll see what they ban this time. And there you go. There is the mirror ban. I suppose they simply didn't want to deal with it for these last few rounds. But in contrast, Kitten Queens is saying that Maverick has been getting our hard walls for free too easily. We're not going to let you do it anymore. So we'll see how Wildcard Queens copes with not having Maverick, with not having that essential free hard breach denial. With the Hibana, the Ace, and the Maverick being banned. We once again have the options being Thermite or the secondary hard breach gadget. Not a whole lot of freedom in terms of how you approach your hard breaching woes.
Yeah, and it's also really interesting just to think about this ticked off, because on the previous sites, especially when it comes to the ban phase, we would usually ban defenders like Jaeger, and especially on attack we would ban attackers that would definitely hinder with their location wise. So we would actually see a lot of bans with Thatcher. We would usually see bans from Dokebi's side, because Dokebi is a really great operator, especially with the calls, instant access of observation cams. If you kill at least one of the operators, capture the phones, and every single information gadget regarding with the defenders, well, it's in the hands of the attackers. So I would say, like, especially from the attacker's side, sure, Maverick is really a good ban. I would say maybe going in for a Brava ban would have been really an influential one, because they still need to figure out a way on how to deal with Fenrir. Because Fenrir's gadget is very powerful, and it also blocks important lines of sight once you head into towards the other side. Great shot though from Oryx. First peaks will be made by Legion. Wildcard Queens once again in the lead.
And getting those early picks is exactly what you need to do as an attacker. Siege is an asymmetrical game, and getting all the advantages you can as an attacker is tremendously important. Now, obviously, that Fenrir definitely is quite strong, but I think the reason why we didn't see anything like a Brava ban, simply put, the Brava wasn't able to really capitalize on her utility in the previous round. We saw Brava attempting to claim some of that generated utility, but the drone was just, it was shot straight away. And that's exactly the problem with trying to take utility from active locations. These Brava drones just get destroyed. And I think that was why they weren't too concerned. And we're going to see a little bit of that making capability on the side of the attackers. Oryx is going to shut down person after person after person, turning this into a 5v2. I was just going to talk about the fact that Wildcard Queens does have the capacity to make third plays, but without the RAM, they're not going to be able to be extremely dominant with all of the that they can make. Oh, I thought that there was about to be a trade out with the shotgun, but of course that doesn't matter, because when you have 5v2, all you need to do are drone out these people, finish the round strong, but it doesn't matter when you have Oryx on the board, 4 kills, extremely tremendous, really ending out the round for Wildcard Queens and the game. And that was a tremendously strong showing from both teams, yes, but Wildcard Queens ended the last part of the game so strong after a little bit of a rocky start.
Yeah, I have to say, like, a really great game, but also, Bully, to be honest, we didn't have to do that. I mean, the ace was already in play for Oryx, and it's really unfortunate that we didn't get to see that ace happen in the final round. But all in all, a really great matchup, I do have to say, from the side of both the teams. And yeah, and with it, I believe it is Team Wildcard Queens who will win the first matchup on Map Clubhouse, and I believe they will also make sure to get their scores up as well for the next future matches.
Absolutely. And of course, we've just seen one game and we haven't seen how all of these teams play. And of course, some teams have really lucky days and really unlucky days. But I think from that showing, if you're a team in this tournament, definitely after that, Wildcard Queens is a team to keep an eye on. Potentially after that performance, they might have put a target on their back. And of course, that is the thing with the nature of these tournaments, is when you play an on-stream game, other teams are going to look at it. They're going to see what you did right and see what you did wrong. And sometimes, that is the price of doing well early on, is that you show your cards. And we'll see if Wildcard Queens still have a few tricks up their sleeves, or even if they don't have anything up their sleeves, but they continue this dominance just because it is that hard to match. And we'll see how other teams respond in the next few games.
Yep, we still have a lot more matches to go, folks. I mean, we still have 2 more matches. I believe we'll have another matchup between Team A7 versus Kitten Queens. And of course, the third matchup, once again, it's Kitten Queens who will go up against Team SX. All in all, Kitten Queens off to a decent start, as you like to call it. Their defensive hold, their attack was really good. Defense didn't quite work out well in their favor, though, because Wildcard was just really on point with their attack executes. It was just a really good execute wise. They really did take their time on droning out. They really did make sure that the breaches will be done as quick as possible, using drones to be able to find out the exact location of players, understanding where the utilities are present, and once they get the final idea, every single player was prepped and ready with the push. Execute was on point, and just like that, Wildcard, an amazing performance from them, especially on the attack side. And definitely we'll be seeing much more matches for them in the near future. But for Kitten Queens, I would say that these 3 matches will be really important for them, because the more points that they that they accumulate on match number 2 and match number 3, the higher the chance that they have in securing at least the quarterfinals.
Absolutely. And, from those plays, I think both teams definitely had a tremendous showing, and they both have a lot of things that they're going to keep in mind. Of course, we saw that Wildcard Queens had a lot of cohesion, a lot of synergy. You're talking about those deal peaks, you're talking about those positions. It just seemed like there was always someone in the right place. And whoever their IGL is, I think that was tremendous work, tremendous, team chemistry and cohesion. Of course, working around to see when exactly that might fall apart, when exactly they're able to look at the rounds that they did lose and how they can keep that dominant performance throughout the entire game. But absolutely a tremendous game.
Yep, tremendous game as well, But yeah, all in all, once again, folks, in order for the second match to happen, we're just going to take a short little break once again, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Project Luna for Rainbow Six Siege X, sponsored by Crack Media and, of course, Rival 7 Esports. We are back once again with match number 2, which will be up against Team A7, who will, go up against Team Kitten Queens. And of course, we did get to see the matchup from Kitten Queens, who they did go up against Team Wildcard Queens. Wildcard Queens did secure their first matchup on a 7-4 scoreline, and now Kitten Queens, they still have 2 more matches to go and see whether if they could handle the lead up against 2 other teams between Team A7 versus Team SX. So ticked off once again, welcome back, and I have to say, Wildcard Queens, a really great performance from them on match number 1. Second matchup, A7 versus Kitten Queens. Do you think that we will see the same map Clubhouse, or would we see a different map coming in from their end?
I mean, I think that I'm leaning towards us not seeing the Clubhouse. Of course, that is the one thing of you playing on stream. You show your cards, you show how you set up, and that's always a risk that you have to contend with when you're on stream. Of course, you don't know if other teams are going to be checking you out when you're playing, but you can never be too sure. So I think that there's a really good chance that Kitten Queens bans out Clubhouse for that security. But even just, these Siege games take a long time. Do you really want to play 3 games of Clubhouse in a night? I think that if not an early ban in this round, if they go Clubhouse twice, I reckon it will be an instant ban for the 3rd game.
Yeah, but I do have to say, if I really have to be the devil's advocate here, I do have to say that Clubhouse is the most played map in the history of Rainbow Six Siege. So every time when you play a match of Clubhouse, especially even if it's on rank or competitive rank, you always get the sense of understanding how the entire map works, which definitely makes it easier to what's going to happen. So I have to say, for match number 2 for Team A7 and Kitten Queens, like you said, hopefully we're looking for different maps, maybe a Lair, maybe Nighthaven Labs, and both of them are present on the competitive map pool itself. But maybe I would say like Cafe Dostoevsky, Skyscraper, or maybe a theme park would definitely be a nice change of pace where Kitten Queens could maybe try to get some other strategies that could involve going up against Team A7.
Absolutely, and that's the thing as well. You can throw a wrench in the works after people have seen you play. Maybe you lean in on that. Maybe you say, "Hey, you know how we play it. You know how we set up. And you do something completely different." Yeah, no, definitely. We've already seen Kitten Queens play, and they made a tremendous, tremendous effort in that first game. They played brilliant Siege, and we'll see how they go against a team that we haven't seen and find out exactly what happens now. Are we going to see another loss for Kitten Queens, or are they going to come out extremely, extremely, on top? Of course, there are more factors at play than just raw skill. Kitten Queens coming off a loss, maybe that doesn't feel too good. Maybe that's in their head, or maybe they're looking for revenge. Maybe they're fired up. Maybe they're warmed up. On contrast, we know you have a team that hasn't come off that match, might be cold, might be looking for something, or might be getting a little bit too cocky, might have seen that round loss, might have thought, hey, this is an easy team, and they might be sorely disappointed to find out that they can't just walk in and take a round. We'll have to find out.
Yeah. And also, we'll also take a look at the stats as well coming in from the side of Team A7 versus Kitten Queens. So the more statistics that we have on the screen, the more we'll be able to understand what type of maps do they play the most, and of course, what type of plays do we get to see from their end. But right now, let's take a look at the standings between these 4 teams. Wildcard Queens, Arrival 7 Female, Kitten Queens, and Strike X. And looking at the standings itself, all 4 matches have been played. And also making sure that we take a look at the points as well. Since Wildcard Queens did secure the first matchup, they will currently be playing at the first place itself with a total of 3 points. And of course, the second team, Arrival 7 Female, also winning their first matches as well with a slight difference of 4, which basically makes them on 3 points as well. So Kitten Queens and Strike X, both of them are yet to make a response. we will definitely see two matches from the side of Team Kitten Queens going up against Team A7 and SX. So if Kitten Queens do secure those two matches, they will, however, reach all the way till top ones, and Wildcard Queens and Arrival 7 be on second and third place respectively.
Absolutely, but also beyond the sort of that round differential is really, really important. Not only have we seen 2 wins, 2 losses, but we've seen 2 7-3 games. Losing those rounds can be problematic later on, as if you see a tie, getting those crucial placements, getting those good seeds can come down to round differential. Doesn't matter right now because, of course, all the scores are the same and the points are what really matters. But later on in those tournaments, even if you're getting really, really strong wins, you need every single round can count, especially when you come down to the wire.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you, TikTok, because, especially when it comes to the standings, it really depends on the amount of round differences the player has made. So if one of the teams do decide to go in an overtime, then the round difference would be so low in a way that the ones who have already won in a massive lead would eventually end up being on the top position, even though both of the points still remains the same. So round difference will be an important factor, and for that as well, you need to ensure what types of map that the players will definitely go in for a peck. So Clubhouse, we've seen a lot of overtime match points that could happen maybe around in Clubhouse, since it's the most played maps. Other maps, I would say, perhaps theme park, perhaps cafe, but not a lot on Lair, on maybe on skyscraper, because skyscraper, since for the defenders there's a lot of opportunities for them to head in for those runouts and get those initial frags, but there is still chance for the attackers to basically hold their ground and ensure that they would at least get those breaches done. I'm basically talking about map skyscraper itself, especially with the huge reworks that happened like a long while ago. I know, like, I've been a little bit outdated at the time, but talking about skyscraper, I would say that maybe we might see skyscraper being played. What do you think, TikTok?
I think that Skyscraper is an interesting map that historically and continuously has favored tremendous aggression, and teams that are extremely confident in their fracking potential tend to do really, really well on Skyscraper. But of course, you have to contend with attacking and defending. I think there's a degree of imbalance when it comes to Skyscraper. And maybe it was just the way that they played against Wildcard Queens, maybe it was shut down. But I think that we didn't see that level of extreme aggression from the side of Kitten Queens that, in my opinion, is really, really required for a map like Skyscrapers. So, of course, we'll see if all the teams in this league feel this way, but of course it might just be because of the map. Like you said, Clubhouse is a map that people have played, that have gotten familiar with. Maybe teams aren't willing to be that extremely aggressive and cocky and brash because they know how to play the game. Maybe when we go to a map like Skyscraper, we will suddenly see these teams come alive and play very, very differently.
Yep, absolutely. And I have to say, like, for certain maps, sure, aggressiveness definitely works if the defenders have less amount of utilities. And when I talk about utilities, it's basically utilities that would stop the attackers from making those said aggressive plays. So barbed wires, of course, very important ones to ensure that the players would, have no other choice but to use at least their explosive ordnance, or maybe, melee it twice to ensure that they can push in, but immediately they would, it would give away their positioning. But most of the time, I would say that on the first matchup itself on Clubhouse, I would say Wildcard Queens clearly showed that really great, teamwork, followed up with some good, tactical siege. Because the thing about siege is that information is queen, and if a player doesn't have a lot of information, it doesn't really work out. So let's not waste any time at all, folks. So let's just head into the bans that we do get to see on the second matchup between Team A7 and Kitten Queens, and let's see which map will we get to see. Interesting bans that are coming in from the side, from both the side, and looks like Border will be the map where we'll get to see between Team A7s and Kitten Queens.
Yes, absolutely. I think that Border is another map that has a very regimented playstyle. While it is not necessarily quote unquote close to being solved like Clubhouse, I think there's more variance, there's more unfamiliarity. I think that there isn't a whole lot of uniqueness that you can do in your border playstyle. And it's really, again, very close to that whole idea of a perfection challenge where you exploit mistakes and you take advantage of things that you know historically before the game has even begun to be failures in play. So we'll see how these teams fare with that.
Yep. Border, it's I would say that especially for the defensive side, second floor archives will be an interesting one to look at, because the doorway that basically connects to a second floor archives is one of the most easier ways for the attackers to instantly go in for a defuse. And most of the strategies that you'd expect to see is either a Montaigne that would basically try to be present from the front line side, while the other second attackers would basically go in for a simple defuse. The usual strat works. I mean, I would basically call that a very quick execute. But there are also multiple ways where the attackers could go in on a different approach, which is basically the common ones: getting control towards CCTV, opening up the important walls that's present right outside from the archives side. Actually, not from archives side. Yeah, from the second floor is what I was trying to say. First floor, ventilation, and of course armory is also one of the most important ones, because that would also be a place where you would really need a sledge or a buck. Maybe an IQ would work with breach charges, because IQ would definitely be helpful in locating important gadgets, followed up with those breach charges that would help in important vertical lines of sight that can clear out armory and give them easier access for those plants.
Okay, let's go into seeing exactly how border plays out. Like you said, there's a lot of things that they need to contend with. And yeah, let's see how it goes.
All right, folks, without any further ado, let us begin with match number 2 between Team Kitten Queens versus Team Arrival 7. I just realized A7 is none other than Arrival 7. So, really excited to see how this match boards up well. So, talking with the ban phase itself, Clash and Goyo will be banned on defense, whereas on attack, just as I expected, a soft breacher Buck will be taken out. So is the Ace as the hard breach.
And yes, certainly these lineups are not too incredibly weird. We have Monty, shield players have been incredibly dominant recently. We have a smoke and a mute, and the secondary shotgun on, of course, the Legion. So we've got a lot of capacity to open up side, set up rotates, lines of sight, all of those things that you want to see. So we're going to be starting with that armory side, and so far, nothing too unique. We have head holes looking outside that breach. We have rotate into security and a rotate into fountain as well. Probably going to see head highs looking into archives. So far, maybe the operator's a little bit funky. We see an Amaru, we see a Glass, but the site setup seems pretty standard. We aren't seeing anything from the get-go that's really out there or special. This seems pretty stock standard so far, but we'll see if the round goes that way.
Yeah. I'm kind of feeling that the Amaru will be the important factor here, because once the windows gets opened up, I believe Amaru would actually do an entrance towards army lockers. Montaigne will be prepped and ready towards second floor archives. So this is exactly what I was worried about. Second floor archives, instant access towards the site. Wait a minute, Amaru's already in towards
Might be going for the
the first
hatch
floor
here.
west main itself. Exactly, yeah. I believe they are going for the hatch instead, or maybe towards the window side. But looks like they are prepped ready towards second floor archives, and this is one of the most quickest ways to gain access. But the thing is, the defenders need to be prepped and ready, and looks like they are with the first frag out. There goes Eddie.
I don't know how effective this sort of Monty Glass strat will work. You have smokes in hand, you have Mute Nitrocell, you have Legion, but none of them will stop Monty from planting. The Nitrocell will find him and shut it down. But of course, kill after kill will ring out, turning it into a 2v4. If Legion is able to stay alive in the sprinter position, which is potentially really powerful but also potentially problematic, this might be a wrap immediately for Kitten Queens. And that's the problem with a push like this. Defenders just have so much shutdown capability and they're able to exploit it. None of these bullets are going to find their mark, but that's okay. All Arrival 7 have to do is sit there and wait. The diffuser isn't down, but Valkyrie will fall, not able to secure that last kill. You have diffuser inside, a 3v1, and a glass. This is going to be so difficult for Kitten Queens to come back on this round. And yeah, no, we were looking for something a little bit wacky, and we saw it with the Maru, with the Glaz Monty play, a staple of ranked, but unfortunately, it's so hard to execute against a team that has that cohesion. And that's exactly what Arrival said.
Yep. And AGLA once again all caught up with 3 important lines of sights. And just like that, we will see round number 1 be at the hands of Team Kitten Queens. Actually, not Kitten Queens, I'm sorry. It's from the side of Team Arrival 7. So the entire first round itself, I have to point this out, ticked off, especially the operator side. You have the Warden, which can basically helps you see through smokes, and you had 2 C4s, one from the Mute and the second from the Valkyrie, being able to deny the the defuse plant, which is happening from the side of Montaigne. And the thing is,
And you had
usually
smokes, and
see
you
it
had
on
legion
second floor
mines.
yeah, so every single denial was present. So I do had to wonder, if going through that situation was a good idea for Kitten Queens, because let's not forget, attackers, they still have a repick, right? So if they just droned it out, see what types of operators they have, and once they realize that, what, wait a minute, they have a Warden, they have 2 C4s, they have smokes, I think it would be best to rethink our strategies and maybe proceed to go in towards the server side instead, going with a simple push towards armored lockers. That could have been a viable option, but sometimes, never say never. Second floor archives, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They actually try to go in with a huge risk from the side of Kitten Queens. I admire that, but in the end, it will be Team Arrival 7 who will win that first round.
To give credit where credit is due, as much as I'm personally not a fan of doing a Monty quick plant like that, just because I think that there's such a capability to be punished even without a lineup like that, which seemed almost a direct counter to attempting to do something like that. I do have to give credit where credit is due. They did almost get the plant down. Smokes rang out, we had the Warden activated, but no one was able to get that Monty down. A few more seconds later, and yes, maybe it would have been a different story, and maybe that's what they're hoping on, but it doesn't matter how close you were by seconds, by kills. What matters is a round win, and that is not something they got. So we're gonna go into the second round, starting off strong this time with a kill on the side of Kitten Queens, getting this armory pressure. Of course, we see a lot of presence from the side of Arrival 7 above site, and that's exactly what you have to do for this site hold, because Bert is just so incredibly dominant here, but it doesn't matter, because Kitten Queens will just walk straight through their top hold. Kaid is staying alive. Shrimp has activated. If she's able to just get a few more kills here, she might be able to keep Arrival 7 in this round, and that's exactly what she's looking to do. But having only one person up here, having Kitten Queens take so much pressure and space, it's going to be really difficult to stay alive, and she'll get a kill before she dies, and that's all she needed to do. It's now 2v3, 1v3, with a benefit to the side of Kitten Queens. Warden's going to narrow it down, turning it into a 1v1. The diffuser is down on the top floor. Warden is just going to go back to site and wait. It's a minute. There's no information. There's no intel. But there is a 1v1 and a minute on the clock.
Yep. Look how the tables have turned. What once was an advantage for Team Kitten Queens, suddenly it's a 1v1 standpoint. Only 40 seconds left, not a lot of informations. They still have the drones, but if they try to go in for drones, they're going to waste a lot of time. So once they head in towards the axis, they still need to get control on the defuse. Yep, there you go. Information will be given, but no information on Warden's whereabouts. So I really have to say that Spleech is safe for now. Well, not for long. Information will be given immediately from the drone. They have the information. Diffuse has been picked up. Drop down will be made. And Spleech, what is your answer? I'm pretty sure the drop down will be heard. So is the yellow ping. Who's going to win it first? Patience is the key to virtue. And looks like we will see Annika going in for a fake plant. Peaks will be made. Great peaks. And just like that, Annika, really great response as they'll be able to win their attack round in second.
Absolutely. You know, Warden, bringing the deployable shield, didn't have a nitro cell to shut down that plant, had to make a decision, had to take a gamble. Is the plant going down? Has it been faked? There's no way of telling. It was the coin flip, and unfortunately, she chose wrong. And that happens. But going into round 3, once again, none of these operators look too unstandard. I've been seeing a lot of Striker recently, perhaps just for that extra line of specific util around, clearing util with that double set of grenades. But other than that, again, looks like a fairly stock standard lineup. Gridlock, I do think, is quite interesting, in my opinion. While I can definitely understand that on a map like Border that is so claustrophobic, the Gridlock definitely can be more oppressive than you would expect, shutting down site retakes, shutting down certain routes. But of course, her capability as a flank denial is a little bit more diminished. Of course, with Border being a map that is notoriously easy to cut down roamers simply with the use of a few well-placed drones. That being said, we saw in the previous round that the Gridlock wasn't used for that flank denial. It was used simply to cut off the map, make it even more claustrophobic. And I think that that is exactly why Kitten Queens is bringing the Gridlock, just to really, really shut down space and make this map feel so much more tighter.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be difficult to contest against a Blackbeard, especially with the rework of the shield. So definitely a pain. Spleech, I believe she doesn't have idea on Blackbeard's location, and you can clearly see the tension that's been brewing around, especially on the first floor waiting room. Information from the IQ's gadget will be able to detect the IQ scam as well. Sorry, not the IQ scam, the Valkyrie scam. Apologies for that. But yeah, information will win, and Spleech gets caught in the crossfire. And Cavi, first frag will be done. Kitten Queens, once again, looking good on attack here.
Absolutely, and I thought that maybe that Warden was able to shut down what looks to be a setup for a fast execute over here. That diffuser is going to go down, but a nitro cell is going to close out the diffuser. Kitten Queens desperately want to get this fast and loose plant down, and they're going to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and immediately get that plant down again. But then no more nitro. There is one more nitro cell, but the plant will not be stopped despite the smokes, despite all Kitten Queens have to do is stay alive. But this is proving to be a very difficult task, but not for Turler. All the Gridlock has to do is deny, and with the frag grenades and with that long-range gun, that is not going to be a difficult task. Smoke is going to force her back, but she has all the time and the intel in the world. It comes down to 16 seconds. Smoke might get the kill, but I don't know if she has enough time to get the plant down. Sprinting at Gridlock, and she is just going to run away, bide her time, and get the kill. She has the cake, and she's eating it as well. A tremendous round from Gridlock, but a tremendous round from Kitten Queens, and a little bit of a cheeky teabag there at the end.
Yep. I believe I would say it would be a sort of sportsmanship too. It's just it's our way to say greetings. Sometimes we don't have a certain emote for that to happen, but that's how we usually greet our opponents most of the time. But yeah, the jokes aside, once again, ban phase will be met. Blackbeard and Valkyrie will be banned as well. Valkyrie very important on defense, especially that would provide a lot of information while the camera gets is currently hidden and difficult for the attackers, which would force the attackers to have an IQ in their team. But now, with Valkyrie being banned, the attackers don't have to pick IQ anymore, so they can actually pick another operator. So I believe they will go with Grim. Grim is a really great operator. He can at least help in getting those important operators who are currently hiding out in those certain corners. But if I talk about Arrival 7, I would say the denial was really good though. They had a total of 4 C4s in their hand. The first C4 was put to great use. The second C4, the timing didn't quite work out well from their end because, as I recall on the previous round, IQ was present. So the Valkyrie cams would have been able to give them proper information on when that default breach was about, sorry, not default breach, the default plant was about to happen. So the first one, they really did predict it right. The second was a little bit too late, which forced on that post-plant situation. If that time was at the right moment, then we would have seen Arrival 7 end up on a 2-1 score line. But Kitten Queens, once again, great performance from Terler, I believe. Yeah. And because of that, with that great clutch that's been made from the previous round, it is 1-2. Round number 4, Arrival 7. How will they go with this?
Absolutely. And, I don't know if that smoke canister got caught, but yeah, you brought that denial for that specific situation and it wasn't able to come out on top. And, I was talking about how I thought that Kitten Queens wouldn't go to a map like Skyscraper because they just didn't have that aggression, that fast and loose playstyle as we saw in Clubhouse. But maybe I suggested that maybe they're a bit different maps. And I think it might be the case. We're seeing a brilliant amount of aggression, almost a masterclass from Kitten Queens from these 2 rounds. That Monty play was a little bit risky and it got punished in the first round, but all of these rounds are coming down to the wire. Even the round that Kitten Queens lost came down to the wire, despite that tremendous amount of utility. And honestly, yes, this depiction of aggression has been absolutely wonderful. Immediately trading off some damage, not able to secure a kill there. Ash is going to be revived. And we'll see how Kitten Queens continues the rest of the round here. Of course, it's a 5v5. It's 1 minute 30 on the board, but utility has been cleared. Space has been taken. But Mute is going to be the first person to fall. If Kitten Queens get this wall open, get that diffuse down straight away, they might be looking at another fast round. And with another defender falling and another defender falling out of the game, that's exactly what Kitten Queens is looking to do. Warden will even out the scoreline once again, but it doesn't matter because Annika will respond in a huge way. It's a 1v3. Warden doesn't have a nitro cell. But if he can deny the plant, it might be enough, but it isn't because she will fail to deny the plant and Thermite will secure out the round.
Yep. Huge improvement though. I do have to give it to Kitten Queens because if I remember right, the first round was a very risky plant towards second floor archives doorway. And the thing about Arrival 7 is that they actually brought operators to counter those set strategies. And now, since the entire thing changed, instead of pushing into a second floor archives, Kitten Queens made a decision to have access towards security first, breach the site towards armored lockers, and then get those important kills as quick as possible. And looks like they did secure in doing so. But I do have to say, Shimperton's performance here, especially on the previous round, was really admirable because she was the one who was providing a lot of pressure towards the other side, especially towards Fountain, giving a lot of problems towards Kitten Queens, where they did have a little bit of halt for around at least 30 or 40 seconds, and it did help the defenders a little bit. But once we did started to see Kitten Queens get the hang of the situation, they did try to remove one or two players off the guard, and once you realize that the entire site was theirs, it was all over. Kitten Queens, once again, great performance from them. They will be in the lead on a 3-1 score line, and for Arrival 7, this will be a difficult one, but they still have 2 more rounds to go before we head in towards the role swap. So let's see whether Arrival 7 could end the first half on a 3-3 scoreline.
Absolutely. And of course, we haven't seen Arrival 7's attack half. We're seeing tremendous play style from Kitten Queens, but after the round swap, Arrival 7 might show up in a huge way on the attack half. Of course, that is the question, is will they have to show up in a big way? Or will they get a couple of rounds here, secure a little bit of a closer gap so they can make their comeback? Or alternatively, will Kitten Queens continue their very, very dominant playstyle and pad out their lead a little bit more? And of course, that early kill on Tullet is going to be very, very brutal for the side of Kitten Queens. 2 kills straight away off the back. If Arrival 7 can just cool out, calm down, and keep this position, this could be a closing of the gap and potentially the start of a comeback. All they have to do is wait and stay alive, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're not over-aggressing, they're just waiting and biding their time. Shrimperton is not going to she is going to secure a kill, not going to get the next one, but that's okay. A 1-for-1 trade when you are up in the game is tremendous. It's a 4v2. You have Grim and Hibana. There is the capacity to make space, but can you stay alive?
Yeah, no explosive to even take out the deployable shield as well. But it looks like, I forget, the fire extinguisher, the neutral ones, will at least block lines of sight for like 2 to 3 seconds, but it's still not enough. No explosive, no chances to remove that deployable shield, and just like that, Thrill, once again, will be able to take out Ellie. Vault will be made. Annika, all by herself, she will find one, but not the other. And this time, it's time for the defenders to make their response known by securing this important round and proceed to the final round of the first half, with Arrival 7 securing 2 defensive rounds. And this final round, I believe they will be heading on towards Bathroom and Tellers, where hopefully we will see Arrival 7 end the first half on a 3-3 scoreline. Could happen, or maybe we could see Kitten Queens going with a different change of pace in their attack playstyle.
Absolutely. And that's the thing with aggression, is that when you aggress, when you go for those quick plays, you really put all of your cards on the table. And Arrival 7, to give credit where credit is due, showed up in a big way. They expected that aggression, they got those early picks, they returned that aggression with their own, and they were able to close out a round. And like you said, it really depends what happens for this crucial final round before the round swap. Does Arrival 7 recognize Kitten Queen's playstyle and continue and close out the gap between these two teams? Or does Kitten Queens realize what mistakes they made in the previous round, continue their aggression, or show up in a big way? Or alternatively, do they do something completely different? Do they recognize that Arrival 7 is expecting this immense amount of aggression, like you said, with that Warden to look through the smoke, with the smoke canisters to deny, with that Nitro Cell on the side of Kaid, with the Legions to stop plant? Does Kitten Queens look at this roster and say, hey guys, let's cool it down, let's clear out util, and let's just hit them like a wall? And potentially that might be the case. You've got a lot of utility here that could be quite problematic from a team that takes it slow. You've got the Grim to flush out Arrival 7 playing in these positions that they already know they're playing, because we're seeing a very, very standard hold. Does the Gridlock make the map more claustrophobic, shut down these roamers, do the lines of sight on the Ram, open up the site, and do these Capital, get these crucial picks or these crucial clearing out of players? We'll have to see if Kitten Queens is able to do that, and we're going to start with a contesting into Armory. Crosshairs will pass like ships in the night. Neither player noticed each other, but Winria rather will find both players of Kitten Queens, and that's going to be so powerful.
Oh, that was a flick and a half. Thrill, what a way to defend the side towards second floor. That was really amazing. But the job's not done yet. They've managed to take out two of the important attackers here at the price of one. And now they still need to figure out a way to take out three of the other attackers, are slowly making their way towards the second floor site. I mean, not the second floor site, like the second floor place. Shipperton, once again, great shot with the TCSC shotgun, forcing on a 4v2 situation. And the smoke, once again, even while being detected from the Grimm's swarm. And somehow they'll be able to get that shot. Turler, once again, great shot to take out the Kaid all the way towards the fountain. But in a 1v3 situation, only 2 frag grenades. One of them will be used to, try to, take out the players from below the hatch. But looks like that's not going to work out, and neither does the kill that was present towards the bottom side. So all in all, as predicted, the first half will come to an end with a 3-3 equalizer. So role swap will be made. Bans are cleared, which means everything is reset.
Absolutely, and I was going to say that, we saw that gridlock deal with the 1v3 before, but unfortunately just a little bit of scope blindness, not able to find the last defender, and shutdown, like you said, brought back to this closer gap. So gonna see that Valkyrie ban straight away off the bat, ensuring that any cheeky denials of aggression will be met with, and I'm really interested to see if this means that Arrival 7 is looking to emulate Kitten Queens' aggression and do exactly what we saw already with that, Azami Valkyrie bans looking to make really, really quick plays, and we'll see how this plays out. Got an Ashe, a Blackbeard and an Ashe. Good Blackbeard swapping once again to a Dogbeard, but a class. Looks like there's a little bit of indecision here. But I thought we were going to see maybe a Monty, maybe something, but of course, it being banned out. But will they still have that level of aggression? Of course, on that window, maybe a variant of Kitten Queens. Like, what do you think Arrival 7 is thinking here? Are they going to go for something similar that's extremely, extremely aggressive and hostile and show up in a big way? Do you think they'll slow things down? Of course, if they are aggressive, problematic operators to look out for, especially that Ktten and that Fenrir, could be quite tragic if they're looking for a rush on site.
Yeah, I believe I believe that Arrival 7 would go in with the safe spot here, just security room, important access that would basically has important lines of sight towards the doorways of the second floor armored lockers, as well as the wall, because that should be their primary concern. But let's not forget, you still have the attackers repicks, so looks like we will see a glass. I believe a glass will be in play. No, not glass. The cabby will still be in play, and of course, you only have one hard breacher, that is the thermite. So I believe a safe spot, a safe option would be the best bet here for Arrival 7. But from the other side on the defense, I believe that the main cause of threat would obviously be the cap cans. So cap can trap will be it should be best for Arrival 7 to make sure to remove those important traps, because if they don't, and if they accidentally enter into us the site, that is 60 damage being taken from the attackers, and that would cause a lot of problems, converting a 50-50 gunfight into a 70-30 gunfight, which is definitely not favorable, especially when you're in that disadvantage.
Absolutely, and it looks like you predicted, they're going for something that is a lot more standard, droning out, taking their time, and potentially looking to get this security presence. There are a lot of castles up here, a lot of lines of sight, but notably, Kitten Queens isn't playing directly in security. If Arrival 7 are able to locate these lines of sight, find castle, get this presence down on top of East, they might be able to take all of the space very, very quickly. And that's the thing with these extensions, is sometimes they fall like a house of cards. We see a kill off screen. Very unfortunate. I don't know if it was a run out, but Warden is going to shut down the Dokaibi. And Twitch is going to get a return, I believe, on the castle. And I was just about to mention this idea of this house of cards. With the castle falling down, there is a potential to take a lot of space, but Warden will replace that. If Arrival 7 can get this crucial pick on 90 on this Warden, I did notice the castle barricade. The castle barricade is, of course, going to keep everyone alive. But if they're able to drone out, find out the position of this warden, playing all the way back in archives, Rival 7 is potentially able to take a lot of space. Of course, with the Dokkaebi down, they are not able to find Romans as easily, but that doesn't matter. They're going to shut down Malusi looking for a flank. All they need to do is get the space and hold it. But with the aggression that we are seeing from specifically Tala, it might be a lot more difficult than it seems. Arrival 7 are crawling their way into security, not quite got CCTV presence yet. All Kitten Queens needs to do is just hold and wait, and maybe shut down an extra pick, and that's exactly what I think Warden is looking for. A rotate all the way to East stairs could completely shut down Kitten Queens if they're not ready for it. Will Warden get there in time? Diffuser is so close to sight. I think they found her, but will she still get this crucial kill?
Yeah, the main concern should be that Team Kitten Queen should deny the plant as soon as possible. Turns out Arrival 7, they don't have to worry about it. Not one bit. Instant info on players' whereabouts and an instant just removal of the players from the other side, providing yet another massive lead coming in from the side of Team Arrival 7. And this is exactly what I'm really concerned about, because let's not forget, Kitten Queens, they did go up against Team Wildcard Queens on a map like Clubhouse, and they did unfortunately lose that matchup. Second match, especially on the first half, it did ended up on a 3-3 scoreline, especially on the first half, which means that the round difference score on this, especially on the entire tournament brackets itself, is going to be a more problematic situation for Kitten Queens, because high likely chances that they would, go all the way from 4th or 5th position, if I remember right. But so for Kitten Queens, if they really need to get back up on track, they need to make sure that they would at least win the second match, hopefully to not be on OT match point, and third match making sure that they'll be able to have a massive round difference in a way that they would make sure that they would stay in the brackets as best as possible. So Arrival 7, they are definitely giving a hard time for Kitten Queens, and you can clearly see that in the second half itself.
Absolutely, and yeah, Arrival 7 just showed us the reason why Kitten Queens brought so much. Or rather, Arrival 7 showed us the reason why they brought so much denial on that first round. Kitten Queens did show up in a huge way in that round, but Capcan was just not able to secure that kill on the diffuser with the line of sight that Arrival 7 had met. And unfortunately, without the use of these nitro cells, these smoke canisters, these denials, it's so difficult to stop the plant. And once the plant is down, we talk about this idea of an asymmetric game, you swap the onus of activity from the attackers onto the defenders. Once the plant is down, and we're going to get, again, another early kill on Tala, and that's going to be so beneficial for Arrival 7. If they're able to drone this out, they should be able to just take security and CC for free. If they're able to drone out East and they take this East control, this could be a very powerful collapse on the side of Kitten Queens. Of course, if you're Kitten Queens right now, you're potentially looking to make your presence known around that east side. Try and get an early pick, and that middle player losing health is not going to be great for them. And look at this! Arrival 7 is just walking at them. They will get the kill, turning into a 4v2, but it doesn't even matter because they have so much space. It's a 4v1 now, and Capital will secure a kill, but she's surrounded from all angles. But surrounded from all angles means you can shoot in every single direction. A 1v4 turned into a 1v2. All Capcan rather has to do is wait. Unfortunately, she's going to get shut down by the side of Arrival 7, and that was so close from Kitten Queens. That was exactly what they needed to do, but unfortunately, just barely caught out there with that line of sight. And yeah, that is the issue with getting collapsed on. After that initial pick from Tela, Arrival 7 was able to take presence on East, on security, on CC. They were able to have so much control that even when they started losing numbers because of how spread out they were, they simply just had so much control that they're able to shut it down, and we see Talos definitely not happy that she was found out in that way. And absolutely, like, I understand you get caught out that way, you can't blame her for that round loss, but it definitely feels bad because that collapse from Arrival 7 was almost textbook. And yes, Capcan was almost able to figure it out, but you can't rely on winning these clutch situations to win rounds, and suddenly in this time, Kitten Queens wasn't able to rely on that. That's another round for Arrival 7.
Yeah.
Attackers must locate.
I almost got caught off guard with the all chat when, Thrill just sent a message that says, "Don't try this at home." Yes, for all the viewers that are watching home right now, please don't try this at home. But sure, you can actually, play a game of Rainbow Six Siege. It's a really fun game to play, to talk about strategies and everything. But IRL, please don't try this at home, folks. Please don't.
You see a couple of wolf growls coming out from Spleech, so we might see the Sigma activation from Spleech over here on the dog. Will be looking for some forward kills. Let's see how it goes.
Well, definitely. I'm pretty sure that we might see some aggressive playstyles coming in from the side of Team Arrival 7. They're currently in a really good lead, though. It is 5-3. Two more rounds win, and they will, definitely be. We might see Arrival 7, secure the second matchup for, especially on the matchup for Project Luna. But all in all, time is of the essence, and for Kitten Queens, all they have to do is just play this patiently. The problem is they have control over the second floor, which means that the Legion has no other choice but to give the control towards the attackers and let them make their play and defend on the site itself, which will give a lot of opportunities for Arrival 7, time and information towards their drones, and figure out a way to execute as best as possible. But once they finally get to realize the important lines of sight that's currently being made from the defenders themselves, they found one, Terror almost securing that kill. And of course, for the Thermite, not to worry, not a single kill has been made from either of these two teams, but something has to happen, and looks like we will find one Terror once again. Here comes the peak, great headshot from Anarchy. It looks like the second won't be happening, though. 3v3 once again. Arrival 7 still making sure that they have control over the situation. And here comes Shrimperton. All out of nowhere. Double kill. And there goes Ellie. 50 seconds left, and Arrival 7, they are so close of securing match point. C4 being used up. Adriella not being able to find now. The SMG-11 not being able to find it. Triple kill for Speech. And with it, now it's all up to Cabby, the lone warrior, on a 1v3 situation. Information's being given from the Cabby's phone, and with it the information from the Lions, hopefully not being able to give the scans. Great headshot. It's a 1v2 situation now. There is still a chance, but a post plant will make it even much more difficult for us. Almost getting the shot though. Spleech, great headshot once again. There is still an opportunity for Cabby for this clutch to happen. Not outside the window, no. Almost a clutch, but Ali once again shatters the dreams of the opponents, and with it, match point will be secured for the side of Team Arrival 7.
Arrival 7, definitely very, very happy with that result. I was going to say that we hadn't seen Kevi in that clutch situation, despite her playing incredibly consistently throughout the game. We finally got to see it, unfortunately not able to secure that final kill. It was just a moment. I saw that flick away from the head holes, and it was so unfortunate. Those milliseconds that make a round. But we are going to see a mirror ban, and honestly, I think that's fair enough. Kitten Queen's mirror hold was honestly quite dominant on that top floor. The lines of sight that they had, the ability to stay alive for as long as they did, was really amazing, and that's not going to be dealt with anymore with Mira completely out of the game.
Yep. And with it, we will see Team Arrival 7 securing match point. One more round win on attack, and we will see the second match be concluded. And with Arrival 7 winning the matchup, Kitten Queens will, could be currently in the danger zone. But I believe they still have one more matchup up against Team SX. So only time will tell. But I still believe that Team Kitten Queens still have the opportunity to fight back. Attackers repick will be made from Arrival 7. I believe Gridlock will be used. So is Flores. Flores is, explosive drones are really well. This can definitely help in taking out the deployable shield that's currently present on the fountain side. And I believe there might be some utilities that could be helped in removing important ones. No barbed wire just yet. You still have the denial informations from the Jaegers' end. I believe, is that a run out? Yep, that's a run out. And looks like Annika once again hoping to find a shot or two or a peak, but looks like you won't be able to fool it twice. So it's best to fall back. An attempt was made, and just it would be best to hold from the building itself as best as possible.
Absolutely, didn't get that kill out, just securing that number there. Of course, we are going to see Annika is going to be aware. The team is going to be aware of Annika's position, but she is able to fall back. But unfortunately, Kavi is not able to fall back, and that is going to be quite an unfortunate loss for the side of Kitten Queens. But of course, Annika returns, closing out the scoreline, but doesn't quite see East player trade after trade after trade. It's a 4v3 with benefit towards Arrival 7, but not just on numbers. Again, I keep saying this round after round, but look how much space that they take off the skill. And that's a cool thing about Siege, is that when a player dies on defense, it's not just their life that you give up, but all of the space that they're able to control. And with this, Arrival 7 is basically, I was going to say, able to take the space uncontested, but unfortunately, Arrival 7 aren't able to see these lines of sight that Kitten Queens are aware about, and they're going to thin the herd. Of course, Arrival 7 still has a lot of map control, but all of a sudden, they are on the receiving end. They don't have the numbers anymore, and they need to, frankly, get a kill or two to try and close things out here. Jaeger is going to play so passively, hiding behind this wall, staying alive and wasting time. With these ADSs, she is going to live for another day, and that grenade will not find her with 50 seconds on the clock. They have to swing, they have to kill the Jaeger, but the Fenrir is not going to save her life. That's exactly what Arrival 7 needs to do. The fire extinguisher is going to deny line of sight, but like you said, not for a long time. If they're able to get one more pick here, this could be what they need to close things out, but the inverse is also true. We've seen Tuller come alive time after time after time, and Thermite is going to start the execute. Will the Warden deny it? No, she won't. And it's turned into 1v1 that the attackers will come out huge on. Trade after trade after trade. It looks... The scoreline would tell you that this game wasn't close. You look at a 7-3 scoreline and you think that there is just a gap between these teams, but every round truly came down to the wire, and that's the unfortunate thing when it comes to round differential, is it doesn't tell you the full story. Arrival 7 might have won this in a big way. Those rounds were so close.
Yep, a very close round though, but really unfortunate that let's not forget it was a 2v3 situation there. Coming in from the side of Kitten Queens, Kitten Queens had the advantage, but somehow Gridlock just made such a magic that not only did she pre-fired the angle to take out the Jaeger, but also ended up securing the win as well for the second matchup for Project Luna. So with that, it will be Team A7 who will also secure this matchup up against Team Kitten Queens on map border. But now, the third matchup will be present once again, folks. It will be up against Team Kitten Queens once again. Will be facing up against Team SX. I have to say, two matches were going really well for Kitten Queens. The first half itself, you can clearly see that Kitten Queens did an amazing job on both attack as well as on defense. It always comes down to the attack phase, the defense phase from the side of Kitten Queens, where they've been having a lot of difficulties to try to, counter the ways how the attackers make their push. So it has happened on Clubhouse, the same thing happened on Border, but I'm hoping that maybe on the third matchup between Team SX, we might see some slight changes. Hopefully, the map changes could be in play, perhaps, or hopefully on Clubhouse, or I'm hoping for a different map this time.
Yeah, I definitely get that. You know, you definitely want to see these more unique, these more funky play styles. I'm honestly really looking forward to potentially a Lair or Nighthaven. I think these maps have a beautiful, beautiful enabling of skill expression, really taking out these new play styles and these new strategies. Unclear if we'll get to see it anytime this early, but you know, fingers crossed. Maybe we'll see something interesting. But uh, yeah, no, haven't seen haven't seen all of the teams play yet, so definitely more unique seeds to look out for, and seeing how all of these teams in this tournament play, what their play styles are, what their strengths are, and their weaknesses.
Yep. Absolutely. Although I have to say, map number is the third matchup between Kitten Queens versus SX will be the final match to be broadcast on Project Luna. So that means that we'll be taking a short little break. Until then, go grab yourself some popcorns. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back to Project Luna, sponsored by Crack Media and Arrival 7 Esports. We are back once again to talk about the third matchup that's going to happen between Team Kitten Queens versus Strike X. But before that, the matchup that happened between Team A7 versus Kitten Queens, definitely worth a lot to talk about, especially on a map like Border. So, ticked off, I have to say, the second matchup itself on Border. Kitten Queens currently at the danger zone right now, losing two of the important matchups between Team Wildcard Queens and A7. On the third matchup between Team Strike X, do you think that there is a possibility that Team Kitten Queens would win this matchup?
I mean, I think there's always a possibility that teams win any matchup, hopefully. But also, I think that the nature of tournaments, especially so early in a tournament, is that there is a lot of uncertainty. And what I mean by that is historically, we've seen great upsets when it comes into those playoff stages, into those crucial final rounds. These teams understand that there's a lot of value to be had by holding strategies close to your heart. Now, we saw that King Queens was punished for some of that aggression that they saw on Border. They're able to take a few rounds, but they weren't able to close it out. Now, was that a case of a team trying to step out of their comfort zone and make something like aggression work? Or was that a team that has strategy close to their heart, that knows what they have is fundamentally different from what they showed, and are holding strategies close to your heart when you go into these playoff stages? And this sort of like meta strategy is always really interesting, because you want to perform well so you get a good seed, but you don't want to target on your back. You don't want to show your cards. Wildcard Queens showed up in a tremendous, tremendous way in that first game, but if they keep playing like this, will other teams know how they play? Will they understand their strategies? Have they shown their cards too early? And this is the great thing about Siege, is there's more than just the game to game. You have to think about the longevity and how long you can last. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, because teams will adapt not just round to round, but game to game and tournament to tournament.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, TikTok. And also, let's take a look at the standings as well for our today's matchup, especially for Project Luna. So we've had a total of two matches. Do have to pause for that. One of which was between Team Wildcard Queens versus Kitten Queens. Wildcard Queens did secure the first matchup on Map Clubhouse, and they've currently in the second place, mainly because we had the second matchup between Team A7, Arrival 7 female versus Team Kitten Queens. Arrival 7 did make their presence known with yet another massive defeat coming in from the side of Team Kitten Queens, but still I have to say that they still held their ground. So Arrival 7, they've managed to secure two matches. So I believe, actually, yeah, I believe it's two matches if I remember right. So a total of 6 points will be given from their end. Wildcard Queens with a total of 3 points. Kitten Queens, once again, in the third position as of now, but hopefully on the third matchup between Team Strike X, maybe we could see those standings come to a little bit of change that could happen from their end. And once again, TikTok, I do agree, especially knowing that Siege, it's filled with surprises. It's filled with so many unprecedented, strategies that would definitely, keeps the opponent guessing and surprise most of those moments. And I'm really quite excited to see what the third matchup between Team Strike X is going to be, especially with the newer maps. I mean, sure, Clubhouse and Border is done, and now it's all up to Strike X and Kitten Queens to determine which map would be the end of the broadcast. And I'm pretty much guessing that since Clubhouse and Border is done, I'm hoping for Cafe Dostoevsky, but maybe there are other maps too. What do you think?
I mean, Cafe is a great map. Historically, a number of teams, sort of in the women and gender minority space, have struggled on Cafe. Unclear if that's just to do with the meta, whatever that may be. Different scenes definitely tend to have their issues. But Cafe is a very, very interesting map in the sense that historically, the way that you approach it has generally lent towards doing this top-down clear regardless of what site they pick. Of course, there are exceptions. When you see an opportunity, you go for it. But it's a very square map. It's very layered, where all of the floors constantly interact with each other. There are lines of sight that you can get from the top floor that go all the way down to the bottom floor, and the chaos and the creativity that we see in Cafe is something that I'd definitely be excited to see as well, especially as we've seen such regimented strategy that comes from maps like Board and Clubhouse. I certainly wouldn't complain. That being said, I'm a bit biased. My favorite map, as boring as it is to say, as basic as it is to say, has to be Chalet. I adore Chalet. I love to see it played.
All right. Yeah, Chalet. Yeah, even I also I actually forgot. Out of all the maps, the first map that came into my mind was Cafe Dostoevsky, mainly because I used to play the Chanka a lot, especially with the ones with the turret. If you know, guys, if you know what I mean, right? The turrets back then, where the Chanka used to be memed down most of the point, and then he was buffed in such a way that he had a total of basically he had a new weapon called as a Shumika launcher, and the turret itself ended up being the primary weapon. So Tachanka, I would say, a really great operator when it comes to denial, almost competing alongside with smokes. But the difference between a smoke and a Tachanka is that the smokes for the smoke gas canisters would take at least 10 seconds, whereas the Tachanka's Shumika launcher would take 5 seconds per shot. So it really depends on situations. Both the smoke and the Tachanka have their own ups and downs, but all in all, I have to say that Chalet, just like you said, out of all the maps, I actually forgot about Chalet. And the thing about Chalet is that it has its own charm. Out of all the maps, especially the reworked version, Chalet was heavily favored for defenders, most probably on the site on basement Snowmobile Garage, right? Snowmobile Garage was like the most safest spot for the defenders. But ever since the entire change happened, right now you have the whole walls that which can be breached, especially on Vine Cellar, instantly giving access for the attackers and giving much more difficulties for the defenders, to hold on to the sites. But all in all, other sides, there's still a chance that the defenders can hold their ground out, but you also need to make sure that the vertical line of sight control still should be at the hands of the defenders, because once they lose it, for the attackers, they don't require a lot of secondary hard breach. All they need is a vertical line of sight and basically get those kills.
Absolutely. And yeah, no, we'll see exactly in a moment, not quite yet, but we'll see exactly what we're going to be taken to, what kind of bans are going to happen. And of course, very excited because yet another team that we haven't seen yet play. And so it's always nice finding out a new strategy, a new team, a new play style. Always exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the thing about Siege, right, TikTok? Because the thing about Siege is that it's always evolving, especially when it comes to the types of operators, the types of metas. Sure, when it comes to metas wise, of course, we had the Jaeger Womai combo with 3 ADSs and multiple, Womai magnets, which was basically an entire projectile meta. But now things have changed. Now the whole, projectile meta ceased to exist, including the 30-second meta, which sometimes happens on certain rounds, but not all the time. Right now, the major changes has to be the types of operators and the types of bans that they go through. And previously, especially when it comes to the ban phase, it was just 2 attackers, 2 defenders. That's it. But right now, for Siege X, the entire ban phase itself changes per 2 rounds. So the first round you play, it's 2 bans. And then after 2 rounds, there's another 2 bans, which means there's a total of 4 bans where things could get out of hand. So say, like for an example, if a defenders do win a lot of matches, the attackers can think about why the reason that they're losing. And also basically they could just look at the types of operators that the attackers are playing, go for those bans, and basically make them a little bit harder for them to defend those sites in the near future. That change itself made it so good that right now, especially this entire meta, is all about change and adaptation. It always comes down to the way how the players adapt, and I really like the direction on the way how CJX is going for right now.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And we saw those changes come out a little bit in these first 2 games, of course. A number of kills, like you said, through those neutral gadgets, through those lines of smoke denial, plans that were disrupted because of those flame canisters. And yeah, no, this I think that as frustrating as it can be from the perspective as a player, as a perspective as a caster and a viewer, these changes are really exciting. They're great to watch.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. But for now, folks, let's not forget we have 2 streams that are happening together from Project Luna. This was from our side, but also let's take a look at the other casters and see the matches that they're happening from their end.
Wildcard needs to confirm that everyone knows the bans. So they chose Tuberau. Having Tuberau be brought out. It's not what you want to see this early, though, just because that's going to be a complete shutout. You gotta have to remind me, does Tuberau affect Capitals? I don't believe so, right?
No, it doesn't have any effect on the Capitals that I know of. But here's what's important here. Everything started going wrong on this site for Wildcard Kweens prior to their very strong retake when that wall got open. Everyone on Strike X was completely surrounding the site, and there wasn't a lot that they could do. But when they kept that wall open, cleanest win they could have gotten. But Strike X was still horrifyingly close to winning. I mean, very, very close. It was just a rough post plant. That was it. Otherwise, they had it in the bag. So, fundamentally, Wildcard Kweens lost a round, even though technically they didn't. So, by having that tuber out, what they can do is when all the utility dump comes out, Capital, the flashes, of which there are none, smokes, any other kind of utility, or Thatchers, you throw those tuber outs, and now you have a buffer to hold on to that wall for just long enough, slow it down, in order to get those bandit charges back down to shut it off.
I do believe the bandits have changed how they work a little bit now with Tuberous since the last season. So you're gonna have to be even more careful with where you put that Tuberous charge though. But they're not gonna worry about it. They're gonna throw out the Capitals, burn them off of it, go for the Thatchers, and Tuberous just gonna have to yeet. Oh, but it did not matter to get picked from the drone hole. That's bandit completely off the board. As long as a second Thatcher goes out in time. That's the pain. That's a horrible place to be with. Also, Cassiopeia being put down to half health, but there's the Doxton to refill it in a 5v4, but didn't have the second Thatcher charge come out. It needs to come out now, but that Capitao, he needs to go and repel in that window to stop this. Because they've got more than enough time. He's throwing those two brows perfectly. If they don't get rid of that bandit now, it's gonna destroy it again. There's no way that wall's gonna get opened. It's up to the Blackbeard now, all in construction as well. 5v3.
No, it really does just come down to that last little wall, and Rivet going down as well. That's going to be a bit of a pushback, but it looks like they're not going to be getting that wall open at all. That's a big blow, because like we said before, Wildcard Kweens can win it with that major advance, but they're still down one player at the end of the day. But they took out Blackbeard, which is big. That's a huge buffer for them. They don't have to get immediately in your face off the rip. They still have balcony control. So Wildcard Kweens can easily hold this out, just as long as these three players hold it tightly and do not overextend. Because two players, now you're just asking to get walked in on. Three, you got to worry about a cross and an offhand player. That's a lot harder to deal with. But regardless, it does look like they're still going to aim for potentially walk in. You've got 2 smokes being held by both Capital and Thermite. It looks like those are all going to get deployed. They're going to try to go for that walk-in. But Shift Day and Blixby are going to get some big damage down. Now going to be up to Cassiopeia. Can't hold on. And there's the execute. That's the push through. Well done, Strike X. You're now back in control. And at a crucial time, as they'll be going into defense next.
And here's the defense. Round swap bans are set back to there. Bans are Monty, Ace, I believe Maverick, Kaid, Sammy, and Fenrir. Yep. There we go. Randy's typing it out as I'm going. Love to see it. But something we're going to have to be even more terrified about, though, is that this is Strike X defense. They're going basement. They're not bringing the Goyo. They're not bringing anything else like they can because they're not sure. So we're going to have to see them. They're playing with kitty gloves now. They're restricted. They need to win this. Otherwise, Wildcards can handle it. Just take it completely on the next defense. What does your big brain here tell you? Go ahead.
My big brain is screaming red flags right now. And here's why. Correct me if I'm mistaken, because I might be. Didn't Strike X... Isn't this the only site that Strike X lost? When they ran it down into basement? Yeah, I don't like that at all. I do not like that. Similar to how Wildcard Queens ran it on CCTV, which was a one site that they really were fighting tooth and nail to keep. And now Strike X is doing the same on basement. Don't like that. I mean, and
this
you
time
gotta keep
they're
in mind, Goyo's
reinforcing.
banned too. Well,
Goyo.
that's a star.
Goyo's not
but-
banned, actually. Just nobody's bringing him. But it's the fact of... This is the concern now. They're not checking things. They've reinforced, which is great. Vigil is now roaming upstairs. 4 drones, I believe, have just been taken off. No, sorry. 3 drones have just been taken off the board, which is a lot of utility gone. Site starts. They're going to have to clear out this Vigil top floor, or they're just going to have to go straight into site. They don't know what they have to do.
Well, and you also have Blixby all the way into Strip Club, so you've got a decent roam. And this composition that Wildcard Queens is bringing does not scream a force plant whatsoever. And that was the only time they won their attack round. So, don't get me wrong, I don't like the fact that Strike X is on basement, but I don't think Wildcard Queens really has an enabling composition that's going to help them here. They do spot the Valkyrie. That's already one piece of the roaming puzzle that they're starting to hunt down, but it does look like they will be able to fully fall back. At least that's another number that's still up for them.
Hatch is going to get opened as well. It's not what you want to see. And the fact that Blixie does just rush back out, wasting his life. Not what you want to see in a 4v5 situation now. Jackal was tracking, but Jackal only pings once now. He's not as aggressive as he used to be, that frag grenade coming out to push them get off the stairs, but he's still going to be pulling it with his shotgun, getting a lovely headshot on the IQ, taking her out of the field. 4v4. Nice to tie it up.
Still a really big mixed bag here. I mean, yeah, you lost your Valkyrie, but you also lost IQ as well. And it all comes down to how they actually get onto site. Again, we don't have any Bunker Buster operators other than maybe the Scammy. Nitro placed, it all comes down to how they make their move after the setup, because they're going to get it. Strike X, from what I can tell, is not wanting to push up anymore. Blixby did try to do that, got wiped out of existence. So it's really just a matter of who's going to take the first hit.
Definitely about that, and the Dark Rivage just keeps peeking this Dogebi. That's not a position I want to be in, even with an ACOG. Having that horrible one-way where you just have to tap the head. No risk, no reward. What? 4v4, 40 seconds left. About to get electric.
Yeah, with only 35 seconds remaining, eventually Drop's going to go down, and it's going to be Auric to do that. Throws the flash and goes on down. Rivet getting taken out. That's what he takes that I Love You secret. Those ones close on the corner, but can she find him? We don't know. Still holding it. The shotgun comes out, takes out Scammy. There's still one close by on the head heights. That's going to be Oryx, but it doesn't matter as the shots connect, and we will see a wipeout as we're going to go into now double OT. It just keeps going. Both teams winning their attack, interestingly enough, folks.
Here's the Goyo finally taken off the board. Sammy's gone again. Kai's gone. Just the pain of it all. I've got to say, I'm not happy with how this is going. They should have had that round. They had the time. There's that sixth operator all the time, and they're just not using it this time. Strike X have now got to win the attack on Jim Bedroom, the one site I believe they've not won at all. Yes, they've been making dumb mistakes on it. They should have been winning this at least a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I do wonder how they'll handle cash. That, honestly, I think is going to be the biggest problem. If they struggle and fumble cash like they have several times in the past, Wildcard Queens wins this by and far. Because StrikeX will get desperate. They're going to try to run it down either main or Logi, and they're going to get caught out in the open, and it will be a bloodbath. We've seen that happen several times. So I really do wonder how Cash is going to end up going. It does look like Wildcard Queens is going to invest more heavily into keeping that jacuzzi wall open, as we do see a Love You's secret on that tuber route yet again. Oh, and it does look like somebody crashed, unfortunately. But either way...
No time to pause either.
I do believe the Rehos will go through regardless. Yeah, confirmed. So,
Damn.
I do wonder what StrikeX is going to try to go for here, what their plan will be, whether or not they try to go for a push from Cash, or if they try to be a little bit more direct, because they did get hit with a lot of runouts too. Either way, having double OT match point and being on defense, or I'm sorry, being on attack, yeah, bit of a nightmare scenario. So what do you think they're going to try to do differently in order to pick up this one final round? Or are we calling it now, chalk it, it's over? What are we thinking?
I'm not going to say chalk it, because this is actually one of the few sites where I did look at it. I had to look back at my notes. They did get this round, but they lost it just in the final moments of it. When they all decided to rush into gym and getting shot out by a Jaeger who jumped through bathroom. Dumb mistake. Sorry, it wasn't Jaeger's Bandit. But if they can fix that, they actually had it. They had a 4v2 on the site, 4v3 on the site, and then just chucked it at the very end. So I'm thinking they can clutch this out. But they're not over. Strike X is the one I'm calling an underdog. You said they're one of the best teams in this. I'm thinking that they're going to be the surprising underdog where they were winning handedly and have had the tooth and nail claw back now. Wildcard, fantastic team. They've showed that they know the map. They just show that they're not strong on attack. Yes, they've been able to capitalize on certain mistakes. Yes, they've been able to capitalize on other things. But neither team have been able to show what I truly want to see from them. And that's going to be seeing the arrivals, seeing their big brain plays. Oh, we also have B-Stream. Rivals won it. So if anyone missing that, welcome over to this side. This is where the pain's going to come out for them. We need to see Strike X not only capitalize on mistakes, using the Hana Bandit to open all those castles early, having the second Horde Breachers come out. Oh, wait. Hold on. Yes, Thermite isn't banned in this case, only Aces, Ace and Mav. So having those come out to try and open the wall, maybe. And then also try and open construction. Don't worry about cash as much. Maybe have people try to push me in stairs. Clearing off common angles by going outside and using windows. There's 46 operators in this game. They still have the 6th pick because somebody crashed. But they chose Dokebi and Habana. I'm hoping they have something else besides use the gadget, catch off Roma, shoot, maybe go for plants, clear out downstairs early. But we're just going to have to wait and see, because these guys know how to turtle it. They know how to do it. It sounds as if, though, we're likely to head back into the match in a second. Is there anything you want to say quickly, just in case we have to go to a break, maybe?
Honestly, the only other thing I would say is, if you want to ignore cash, perfectly fine. Just do not let them use that as a run-out opportunity on you. Because that will be a round killer for sure. I can definitely see the value in that, especially with how much trouble there has been around cash. But if they completely ignore it, yeah, it's going to hurt. Because I believe there was one round where they did absolutely get curb stomped trying to
Same round I was
attack it.
talking about.
Yeah, they got what, ran out, peeked from that balcony like 3 times. Yeah, it was rough. So you can ignore it, but you still got to respect it, right? We kind of talked about how this was a matchup of not respecting the attack whatsoever. This is one of those moments where you could absolutely bait that out and punish the life out of it. All of the habits, all the behaviors, all the trends are locked in. This is the time to flip it on its head, especially if you're a Strike X on attack. You really don't have an option.
You're definitely right about that. And from the looks of it, we might have to go to break. It seems like there's probably other issues going on. Oh, no, I was wrong. They got us straight into it. Perfect. We get to see that swap. Strike X, we know the site's upstairs. They cannot change operators, so let's hope for the best.
Yeah, that's all we certainly can do at this point, is hope for the best for both of them, because, yeah, it's going to be definitely a bit of an uphill battle. For Wildcard Queens, it's going to be holding Jacuzzi wall, because Strike X does like to walk through that, and it can get ugly fast if they clear their check their corners. But for Strike X, the cash problem. What are they going to do about cash? Both of these teams have their own distinct struggles that they have to deal with. Their strong suits, their weak suits. Whoever can manage it better takes it.
You're definitely right about that. Here's the thing. I keep forgetting Tubbs was on the field. That TMR, if that's what Secret's running, I don't know if it was. But even then, that's going to be even more dangerous on that long angle now. So, I'm not sure if you know. Because of how the lighting changes and stuff like that, you can actually hide pretty far away, and even with that red outline, you can get a really nasty angle from where those CCTVs are, all the way outside into where that spawn can be. And if somebody's rappelling on that window, trying to use those special angles to get a line of sight from B into A and so on, you can actually shut it down quite easily with the Tubero assault rifle, but I'm not sure. We do get to see the Blackbeard come out, and we get to see Swift onto Valkyrie. Sorry, Swift on Hibana. 2 minutes 40. This Blackbeard's just going to rush. I don't even think they're going to care about it. They've droned it all out. They know what the plan is. They know the roam game is very shallow, but they are focusing on CC again. Hopefully, they're being prepared for this.
I do like this angled. Whoa, that's a fast push in from Rivet. I like it, though. Trying to push this out quickly, immediately getting that wall open. Wildcard Queens thought they could get a stall. That's not happening. Now they got a shield in their face. They do have nitros in hand, though, and we're going to see that get thrown out immediately. That's going to force Rivet into a box corner here, but you don't have really a side cross angle to try to hit at him, so he's going to be able to free reign that. That's just a nitro off the board. And like you said, with only one drone out for so much space they've taken off the rip, this is looking good, except for the fact that Bully just caught Dip Morgan off from the balcony. Rivet going down as well. That takes I Love You secret. That's a big misstep, as well as Blixby trying to go in rogue to take something, but runs into the cross. And already, Cash has just collapsed for Strike X. Good initial, but man, taking space, not even an inch.
Oh, the pain of it. As I was wrong, no DMR. But they just forgot about it. They forgot the pressure. They forgot the drone holes. They forgot to use the creative plays using nades. And I'm worried this Savannah's just going to drop and try and go for the swing here. Secret has punished your team time and time again. Thermite, yes, he's causing a distraction, but it might not be enough.
Oh.
He just baited himself, and he does not get any reward out of it. Now Sabana is setting a 1v5. She needs to ace clutch this to win this. But that two-brow is in CC, and he's not alone. A minute left, has to swing. Luckily gets a shot in the mute. Now, he's still got to face this two-brow, his greatest adversary at this moment. Shift and Secret are not letting this slide. 1v4, he's got 43 seconds. What do you think's going to happen here?
I think Shift gets absolutely wiped out here. Knows that there's one servers, but Secret's playing this so close. Wasn't expected to rotate, though, interestingly enough. But either way, with 30 seconds remaining, there's not a lot you can do there. But I do want to quickly say, ooh, nice shot. I love the way the two brow was used. slowing or using that canister to cut off the swing angle to allow focus on fighting the window. Amazingly done. That's how you break pinches with utility in the best way possible. But moving on, 8 seconds remaining, no diffuser in hand. Gonna have to run this down. That fire is gonna cut him off. You do have one lurking from top red stairs, but it doesn't matter. There's no way to get in, and this is Wildcard Queen's victory and a little teabag to finish it off.
Wanted a hug. Castle just wanted to come up and give it a little hug. It was a good game, GG. These girls were women, but Wildcard had their crown. They knew what they wanted. The tiara was shined and polished for their victory this time. 8-7. Kosk. Welcome back to our lovely faces. There's a little bit of BM from both teams, but respectfully so. This is Project Luna. I do believe we have another match, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do actually have another matchup. So we're not going to be done quite yet. But in any case, yeah, I mean, this really was just a defense, slog fest. But I really do love the fact that they were both able to pull up an attack on their overtime. I was not expecting that at all. I really wasn't. When I saw Strike X pull the attack, I was like, okay, they won this. It's over. And then they lost on defense. I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty dang cool. I was not expecting that at all. Where that was for the rest of the game, however, don't know. But in any case, yeah, I mean, that was absolutely what they needed to do. I mean, it's really unfortunate that Strike X was never able to figure out that cash problem. But I mean, regardless, I mean, there was still big improvements from both sides towards the end. They both realized that they can't win by just nailing defense every time, and they learned to start really sending it down. And I think that was a great step in the right direction. But either way, yeah, I'm not too surprised that's super close. That tends to be what happened when you have like defender-heavy teams that struggle on attack. You're gonna hit overtime, right? You're gonna stack 5 or 6 rounds, maybe a round outlier, and then you're gonna nail overtime. It happens all the time, and this is no different.
You're definitely right about that, but I'm gonna send us into a quick break here. We'll hear more of your thoughts afterwards, but for now, I want to go research what just happened in their B stream, so give us a couple minutes, we'll be back in a bit.
All right, folks, once again, welcome back to Project Luna, sponsored by Crack Media and Arrival 7 Esports. And I have to say, what an amazing match that you did get to witness between Team StrikeX versus Wildcard Queens. Once again, huge shout out for our casters from Team A, Piercing, CV, and of course, Star Drago with their amazing casting. And of course, it went all the way up to 7-7, the entire matchup here. And I have to say, it was a very powerful match. Don't you think, TikTok?
Yes, no, double overtime, and that's exactly what you want to see as a viewer. Of course, like I said, very, very difficult as a player to go through that much siege in one go without a break. But that is the kind of siege you love to see. And interestingly enough, with such a close performance against Wildcard Queens, and this is the nature of siege with different play styles suiting different things, will Kitten Queens struggle against a team that on paper is extremely close to Wildcard Queens? Or will they be able to find that because of different play styles, they actually do significantly better against this team as opposed to how well they performed against Wildcard Queens? And that will be interesting to see.
Yep. And also, once again, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to take a look at the standings as well. But right now, we'll take a look at the side of our team card from the side of Team Kitten Queens. Let's not forget, we had our two matchups. One Kitten Queens going up against Team Wildcard Queens. Wildcard Queens did one against Team Kitten Queens on map Clubhouse. The second matchup, it was up against Team A7. It was on map Border. Very unfortunate that Team Kitten Queens won't be able to win those two important matchups, but still, third time's the charm, and I believe going up against Team StrikeX will be a challenge. But hopefully, this third matchup would definitely deliver such great moments that it could happen. So yeah, from the side of Kitten Queens, once again, Captain, Natalie, Adrela, Voxis, Terror, Kato, Hellcat, Kirlin, Annika, and Ali. I have to say, great performances being delivered from both on the both maps of Clubhouse and Border. And I have to say that hopefully on the third matchup we might see some some changes in strategies as we might get to expect from these teams.
%. Yeah, I mean, what exactly are you looking forward to in this thing? If you could, and obviously you can't and you shouldn't, if you could speak to these teams right now, or at least because we haven't seen StrikeX play, if you can speak to Kitten Queens right now, what are you saying to them?
Oh, I'm sorry about this. Is it okay if you can repeat the question again? I sort of dozed off.
Oh, of course. If you could speak to Kitten Queens right now after seeing the games that they've already played, and let's say that you're their coach, okay? You're in the room with them. What are you saying to them right now? What do they have to change? What do they have to do if they want to get the first win of the series?
Yeah, I would, to be honest, I would actually start with a simple motivational speech. It's just start with at least 5 or 10 seconds of I have a dream that maybe we might have lost match number 1 or match number 2, but match number 3 is the part where we prove ourselves that we shall be victorious. Maybe something similar to some motivational speech. Granted, I'm not that really good when it comes to strategy wise. I'm more of a motivational speaker, sort of, but all in all, a little bit of morale boost could help the team in securing that victory that they wanted to have, right? So yeah, once again, taking a look at the standings as well. Wildcard Queens once again on the top of the leaderboard with a total of 9 points. Arrival 7 female with a total of 6 points, and of course Kitten Queens unfortunately not being able to win a single matchup. Hopefully, time and tide waits for none, and hopefully on this matchup up against Team StrikeX, maybe we could see a surprise comeback that could come in from their
end. Yeah, I mean, definitely all of these teams we haven't seen StrikeX play, but they came up in a huge way against Wildcard Queens, of course. The nature of double overtime is that there still has to be a winner and there still has to be a loser. So,
Mhm.
and I think this is the great thing about this tournament, this league, is that historically, a number of these scenes have had issues where there have been really, really good teams have been so-called the competitive teams, and then there's been everyone else, teams that struggle, teams that you kind of objectively look at and you say, that team is like down for the count, out of the running. But something that's really, really nice to see, and something that I believe we have seen in these tournaments, is all of these teams are competitive. I don't think you can point at any of these teams and confidently say this team will never win anything. All of these teams are incredibly, incredibly strong in their own right. All of these rounds are really, really coming down to the wire, and that makes for some excellent, excellent viewing for Siege.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, I would say for the side of Team Kitten Queen, sure, they've had like great progress when it comes to the attack side. But once defense appeared in the second half, they would usually lose a lot of defensive rounds. Both happened on Clubhouse when they went up against Team Wildcard Queens, and of course, the second time when they went up against Team A7 on map borders. So I would say that for Kitten Queens, they need to be prepped, they need to be prepared, and also find some different methods on their defensive, from the mechanics aside. But all in all, I have to say that from the side of Team Kitten Queens, they've already lost 2 matches as of now, but hopefully up against Team Strike X, I would say that there is still a possibility where this matchup could maybe a huge possibility where it could go into overtime match point, but I have no proper idea on which team it would, which team would we see, either Kitten Queens or Strike X win. But all in all, it only happens once we head in towards the game, see the map ban, see what kind of maps do we get to see in the especially in the matchup of Project Luna. But all in all, I have to say that these 2 matches that we've seen right now, especially on the Stream B matches, have gone exceptionally well. The first and second matchup, sure, we didn't get to see a lot of OT match points, but there were a lot of memorable moments that we did get to see from A7's side, especially an almost ace that was delivered from the side of Team A7, but it was eventually been denied by their own teammate itself. It usually happens, some funs and banters happening, especially in CJX. But from the side of Team Strike X, I would say that they've had a major downfall, especially when we did take a look at the standings itself. Both, Kitten Queens and Strike X are at the bottom of the leaderboard, and it is not looking good from their end. They did try the level best to try to put themselves back on track as best as possible. They did. I would say Strike X gave a really great fight up against Team Wildcard Queens, making sure that they would go all the way up to overtime match point, which means that there would be a lot of changes on round difference. So, especially looking at that situation, I would say that Strike X really did give a very good fight up against Team Wildcard Queens, and of course A7 being on the top of the leaderboard. But yes, all in all, Kitten Queens versus Strike X, I wish these 2 teams the best of luck, and hopefully we'll be able to see that match join in as soon as possible once we get the information on the bans, and of course once we head in towards the game. It will be a sight to behold. But yes, once again, let's take a look at the statistics from this. I mean, I wouldn't say the statistics, I would say the team card coming in from the side of Team Strike X. The best map that they would play would be on Map Bank, and of course the problematic maps would be on the side of Cafe Dostoevsky. Once again, my favorite map has been Cafe Dostoevsky most of the time, and of course my co-caster ticked off his favorite map is also from Chalet. So we're still waiting on those 2 maps to join in on the third matchups. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We did see Clubhouse, we did see Border. I'm just hoping that we might see a different map, but only time will tell.
What is your prediction though? What do you think that these teams will? I actually, not just what is your prediction. What do you think, based on what we've seen from Kitten Queens, is the best map and the worst map? Because I'm gonna preface with what I think that potentially Kitten Queens could do, I think, really, really well on Chalet. And I know I'm biased. I know I like Chalet, but I think that they could do really, really well on Chalet. Alternatively, I think that potentially they might struggle on Skyscraper. But what are your thoughts? Kitten Queens, if you're deciding the maps, what do you say?
I mean, I'm not going to predict or anything, but I would say that since both Kitten Queens and Strike X are in a very difficult situation right now because they're on the bottom of the leaderboards, like I said, third and fourth position. And I believe that Kitten Queens might take it, but it really depends on the map veto. So why don't we, take a look at the map veto and see which map do we get to see from the side of Team Kitten Queens, and of course from the side of Team Strike X. So only once we get to see the map, we'll be able to determine whether which team will be able to get it. And turns out, oh boy, this is an interesting one.
Nighthaven Labs. Exactly
Nighthaven
what I
Labs.
wanted to see. I said that I would be excited to see it, but
Yeah.
honestly, I'm so glad to see it. So many teams think that it is this really, really difficult and unique map, but if you play Nighthaven Labs, it's so reminiscent of some of your favorite maps that have been in the game for a really, really long time. It isn't this scary, unique challenge that teams I see time and time again label as such, and I love to see a good Nighthaven Lab that executes the potential for playmaking opportunities. It's just, oh my god, I love Nighthaven Labs. It's not my favorite map. Obviously, Chalet didn't quite make it all the way through there. We see that last man over there, but it definitely, I think it's a great map.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the best part about Nighthaven Labs is the amount of Easter eggs that is present in the map itself. Let's not forget, you actually have a room that says Animus. That actually is a huge reference of a game called Assassin's Creed. And of course, there's a lot of hidden references that is also present even on the map Villa as well, where you actually get to see, the assassin basically performing a leap of faith. A lot of hidden Easter eggs are also present on certain maps as well, and it's up to the players to check which part of the map would be able to see. A lot of Easter eggs are present, but yeah, focusing on the match at hand, I would say Nighthaven Labs will definitely be an interesting one between Team Kitten Queens versus Strike X, because usually we would see maps where players are very comfortable to play with, and the most maps which obviously would be either Clubhouse, Chalet, or Border. But now, since all of them are banned, and it is none other than Team Kitten Queens who've made a decision to go in for Nighthaven Labs, with them going on defense first, will be an interesting one to look at. And most importantly, I would say that in Nighthaven Labs, there's a lot of opportunities for a vertical line of sight, especially when you're on basement. So if you are holding a site on basement, always make sure that you have at least a lurker or a flank that is always present, holding in on the top side. Waste a lot of time for the attackers to ensure that they won't have control on those, because once they have it, it is going to be a nightmare for the defenders to be holding those sites.
Absolutely, but I honestly Nighthaven Labs has a variance in the way that its red works, but I think that the degree that it's reminiscent of maps, even like Clubhouse, is a lot stronger than you might think. There's the capacity for denying plant in a couple of interesting ways. So, I mean, the obvious ones are for the basement side, getting a lot of vet pressure so you can get those lines of sight down, going for a hatch drop and plotting right next to that soft wall. On the first floor side, when you are defending from below, you have the capacity to throw nitro cells from below. That is another great form of denial. And of course, the top floor site can be cut in half quite easily once you take this sort of branches pressure. So it definitely does have its degree of uniqueness. But I disagree with the notion that it is as sort of esoteric as a map. I think that it is a lot more simpler than people give it credit for. And, well, the big question is, will these teams play it quote-unquote correctly? Will it go down to the wire when it comes to gunfights? Or will we just see, good old Siege that plays out like a chess game where we see trade after trade, we see classic executes, yada, yada, yada? Again, of course, we don't know yet, and we're about to see. We're about to find the answer out, but again, who will win, who will lose, how will they win, how will they lose, is anyone's guess. Of course, even if you have the strategic advantage, even if you do everything right, Siege at its core is an FPS game. And if you can't get those kills, if you can't secure them out, it doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter how good your strategy, your planning, your cohesion is. If you can't win your gunfights, you will lose siege.
Yep. That is the most important part for, an important FPS games out there. But also the most second important part of all, for both the attackers as well as the defenders, are the information. Because default cams on the side of defenders, attack drones are very vital in a game like Rainbow Six Siege, where information is queen. So the more information you have on the battlefield, the quicker that you understand the situation and make it easier to execute the sites as an attacker, as well as defend the site as the defenders, to ensure that everything goes up everything goes up well from their end. So yeah, Nighthaven Labs will be the map, and hopefully it will be the final matchup as well for our Project Runa. We had a total of 6 matches, 3 matches from the side of Stream A, 3 matches from the side of Stream B. Both of those matches went extremely well, and the third matchup will be the deciding factor to see whether if Team Kitten Queens, gets to start their comeback story, or will we see StrikeX, make another journey and see whether if they could, fight their way all the way back up to the top spot.
Absolutely. And I think to a degree, looking at some of these bans, but specifically these bans that haven't been banned, I think that there's a potential that StrikeX, again, this is just speculation, of course. Maybe they just don't like these maps, and maybe they just like other maps because of arbitrary reasons. But it really looks to me like a team that favors that doesn't like these whole degrees of variance, but is still in their own right quite aggressive. And so I think that this potential hybrid playstyle might manifest for a really, really interesting game against Kitten Queens, because of course I think that Kitten Queens also has, to a degree, a variant playstyle. We saw them playing in Clubhouse against Wildcard Queens, and we saw a very, very reserved, a very, very slow, very, very casual and strategic and paced out playstyle. But when we went to Border, we saw something significantly more aggressive. And look at these bans. I think that to a degree you can assert that maybe StrikeX is similar in a number of ways. And if that is the case, it'll be really interesting to see how these two teams meet. Will they see each other and they go back to what they're familiar with and what they're more comfortable with? Or will they essentially pick a side, pick a play style, and hope it works? Will StrikeX decide to go, should I be more aggressive? Should we be more aggressive? Should we be more passive? And Kitten Queens make that same decision? Or will they make that decision irrespective of how they interact with each other? And that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to on this Nighthaven Labs map.
Yep, Nighthaven Labs. I would say that for both the sides, for Team Kitten Queens and StrikeX, both of them are currently heading towards an unfamiliar territory. Unless and until if they have practiced Nighthaven Labs in a way that they know the entire map straight in and straight out, they know the exact proper angles of an important lines of sight, they have proper ideas of run out positions, maybe perhaps some, spawn peek right from outside the window. So unless and until if they have like proper information on how to progress towards Nighthaven Labs, I would say that for both the sides, it feels like an unfamiliar territory. Only we'll get to know it once we head in towards the game, right? So we still need to see, we still need to check, and I would say that from the side of Kitten Queens and StrikeX, it all comes down to this, especially on the standings. So for now,
Absolutely.
schedule. I'm sorry about that. I actually got dozed down a little bit there. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, I would say for Kitten Queens, this could be their final chance, because winning this match would at least give them a chance to put themselves back up on the feet. And I'm really rooting for Kitten Queens, but also I don't want to be biased as well, because StrikeX, they also have made an impressive performance, all the way from 7-7 OT match points. So there could be a really great matchup that it could happen. So yes, folks, without any further ado, let us not waste any time and proceed to match number 3, Kitten Queens versus StrikeX on Nighthaven Labs.
Do you have any speculation as to what you think the bans might be for either of these teams?
I would say just two hard breaches being banned. I'm pretty sure two hard breaches will be banned. I can clearly say it.
On Night Haven Labs?
Not even
DC
labs,
and
yeah.
Ace and a guide, okay.
Yeah, I mean it's either an ace because ace has been the most easiest hard breacher that can open up lines of sight. It's basically a projectile throw. So ace is one of the most safest hard breacher operator that is so effective even when you're playing solo ranked. So with him being out in the play, you can clearly see how powerful ace is as a hard breacher. But talking about another hard breacher, once again, as predicted, thermite will be taken out, which means hibana is the only hard breacher that is currently present. Of course, you still have the secondary hard breach operators like Zido. You still have one more, maybe hopefully a gridlock should be having a secondary hard breach. Not quite sure, but only time will tell. But all in all, round number 1 will commence, and the site will be on command centers and servers.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's definitely a little bit intriguing just because I think that these teams value that is placed on the idea of keeping all of these walls continuously reinforced and electrified is a bit odd. Historically, with the amount of utility that you have in Siege, it's still really, really easy to clear out walls to get them open. So teams as we've seen continuously round after round after round, teams trying to ban out these hard breaches and banded trick. I mean, it's not alien, but this almost obsession with it, I do find that, to a degree, I find that quite interesting. It's definitely, I believe, at least somewhat abnormal. But other than that, we see pretty stock standard hold over here. You know, you've got the bandit IT, you've got to rotate, you've got that external wall reinforce, you've got the Wamai playing below, of course, to deny the bandit kill from the window. And that looks like what Dokubi... No, Dokubi is not going to go for that early pick on bandit, but of course you need to have a Wamai player playing over here, or not necessarily a Wamai player, but you need to have someone down here to protect bandit, especially if they're going to bandit trick. However, you can get caught out, and without a Rafters players, this Wamai player might get denied if they're able to get this wall open. And we're going to see a kill come out on the side of Valkyrie, which is phenomenal for Kitten Queens, because as I said, they might have their defender of the Wamai being caught out once they get this wall open. But yes, certainly having no Rafters presence is a bit interesting, and we'll see if they get punished for it. And I'm corrected, Legion has now taken the position of Rafters. There's very limited utility here, but if she's able to stay alive, able to waste time, able to prevent them from coming in through LET and into Rafters, this could be very powerful, especially with an early kill on the board.
Yep. Early kill advantage from the side of Team Kitten Queens will be good, but here comes the call from the Kebby, and here comes the pain. Adriela, what a response! The SMG-12 from the Vigil definitely makes its mark. And also, what a way for Kitten Queens to make the response to. That's 2 players gone, a C4, but here comes Adriela once again, double kill with the SMG-12, and another from Annika, which leads to Saint Shift in a 1v4 situation. Finds one of the players, won't be able to find the kill just yet. A flashbang will be used to try to disorient one of the players, but a run out will be made nonetheless, and Saint Shift might not have any information.
Kitten Queens are
regarding
hungry
this.
for this kill. And they didn't have to go for it, but of course they went for it nonetheless, and they closed out the round. They all, I saw that as soon as it turned into a 1v4, the entirety of Kitten Queens manifested IT Reach, all looking for that final kill. And sometimes, you know, that doesn't go great. Sometimes that's when you enable a clutch to happen, but of course, that is not what happened in this instance. And Kitten Queens shut down the last player in Strike X and start this game with a round under their belt.
Yep, the first round itself. But yeah, looks like we might have to go in for a rehost once again, folks. So yeah, we will once again, we are back from the caster's desk, and the first match is the first round itself was a very close round itself, especially with the plays from the Vigil, 3 kills back to back, and a really great response coming in from the side of Team Kitten Queens, securing the first round on defense. Second round will be even much more difficult for the side of Team Strike X to make the mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you talked about this idea of teams necessarily being a bit unfamiliar, but I think that this kind of shows that Kitten Queens is definitely very, very familiar with Nighthaven Labs. They played that exactly how you need to play it. It was fairly standard. Yes, you might have an Azami, you might have a Rotate, you might have more of a presence around that Rafter side, but this is such a minor detail, and they certainly weren't punished for it. But they did exactly what they needed to do. They kept IT Breach closed. They had that player below, making sure that that bandit stayed alive, keeping that wall closed, and they correctly realized as soon as that Maverick started getting the wall, they needed to back off. They made all of their correct decisions, but crucially, not only did they make all the correct decisions, they won all their gunfights, which also matters hugely, hugely, especially that early kill was absolutely phenomenal and put them in a great position to end out the round incredibly strongly on.
Yep. And also, let's not forget the Vigil, if I recall properly. Like, currently Vigil has two weapons, right? He has the SMG K1A and of course the infamous Boss G, where one ACOG sight for an Boss G basically ended up being one of the most powerful weapons, especially a power that can one-shot a player in mid-range. That is the power of the Boss G, and you can clearly see how powerful it is, especially when you're trying to contest in those important gunfights. But SMG-12 is also one of the most powerful weapons too, with a high fire rate. But when it comes to handling the recoil of it, it is really difficult. But once you've mastered the recoil of SMG-12, being able to master other weapons could definitely be an easier method to do so. So having a Vigil, especially on a map like Nighthaven Labs, can definitely help Vigil to basically roam around without without worrying about the attacker's drones. Of course, the location won't be precise. The locations of Vigil will be known, but for the attackers, it will be much more difficult to properly pinpoint the location of Vigil's location. So being able to play on Nighthaven Labs will definitely be a boon for the defenders. And for the attackers, I believe they need to rely on bringing in certain operators that can help them in trying to remove those important roamers first. So perhaps having a Jackal would work, because Vigil's counters can actually work out on line as well. So if a line uses his E1D scan, Vigil can basically bypass it just by using his ability, and he can sprint anywhere he wants. I believe the same thing can also be said for the Jackal sprint scan as well. So Vigil, I would say, a viable operator in basically trying to bamboozle your opponents, especially for the hunters, as I'd like to call it, from the attacker side, where they try to get some information regarding with players' location. But we didn't get to see that. Most of it was heavily relied on breachers, because you really need a breacher. And since, especially with the ban phase itself, removing two of the hard breachers, mainly Ace and Thermite, they have no other choice but to pick with either a Hibana or a Maverick, in which the way how we did get to see the Maverick being able to open up that important wall in such quick fashion is such a good skill to have, because usually Maverick mains always have problems, especially when they start making up holes from the top and the bottom, because once the location is revealed, you would always see at least one of the defenders to try to prone in and try to remove the Maverick. So being able to open up that wall of sight very quickly is definitely a good Maverick main, and I'm really glad to see that Maverick is being played a lot, especially in this meta.
I mean, yeah, but also you have to realize that the nature of competitive is that you have team cohesion. But running up to a Maverick hole and proning should, in most instances, be a death sentence, because you should have someone watching those holes. And we will go back to another rehearsed classic Siege moment. But yeah, no, the thing about, especially on something like IT Breach, you have the staircase, you have someone to watch those holes at the bottom, you make them first and then you clear it out. You should be able to deny any nitro cells, any people walking up. Fundamentally, if you are dying, if you are messing that up on the side of the Maverick, that is not the normal, but that is fundamentally a mistake. You shouldn't be dying to that. And they played it correctly. They had players watching on those staircase, denying that walk up, and in turn, StrikeX did respond accordingly. They understood and they respected that presence, those lines of sight. And unfortunately, after the pool was open, Kitten Queens did then take the fight to them and won those fights.
Yep. Right now, I would say for Night Haven Labs, there is currently two more sides that's present from the side of Team Kitten Queens, right? The first one is obviously the basement side, which is a really strong hold for the defenders, unless and until the attackers gain a hold on the first floor side. And of course, the first floor side as well, where I believe there is two locations that's currently present on Night Haven Labs, which is really strong for the defensive side. But I would say that for Strike X, especially in the first round itself, you can clearly see that they have a proper idea on those executes, but they really need to be, I would say they really need to be very worried about the runouts and the runouts that will happen from the side of Team Kitten Queens. So once they understand the timing of how it works, like say, like for an example, if they're going for a breach, being able to predict at the right time at what time the run out would happen would definitely help. Or instead of all five attackers trying to push in on one single breach, it would be best to just split up, have 2 or 3 players focus on breaching the wall, whereas the other 2 focus on trying to catch roamers or maybe try to catch players off guard. Maybe going in for a split decision, like 3 focusing on breach and the other 2 focusing on taking out the roamers, would be an ideal solution for Night Haven Labs, especially for the attackers to gain momentum and gain control of that situation.
100%. And with that, with this rehouse, you have this break in momentum. Of course, we did only have one round, but sometimes one round is enough to build momentum. If we didn't have this rehost, maybe Kitten Queens are feeling hype of when they're feeling good, they're confident, they have this aggression that they otherwise wouldn't have, that is now sort of being set on ice. And maybe Strike X is sitting there and they're reflecting and they're having this time to cool down and they can come back with a fresh mind. And again, it's this whole conceptualization of these external factors that come to Siege. Something as trivial and asinine and unfortunately as common as a rehost can also mean all the difference. And we are coming straight back into things without further ado. Going into round 2, obviously, Kitten Queens are going to have to go to another site, but we'll see if they are going to play exactly how they did for the first site. A healthy mix between that strategy and that aggression, understanding that you need to have a time and place for these things. And they did that. They did that very well on their first site, but now we're going to basement. And you talked before about this idea of challenging Vert and having a lot of oppressive vertical positions being quite problematic for a lot of teams. And we'll see if that's the case, because of course basement is a site where you can get a degree of very, very brutal Vert here. Now, like you said, you talked about Animus over there. The opportunities for various attacks on this basement site are quite vast. You've got classic ones, you go through the main breach, you plant close either on the left or right, you can get that to then watch over the plant, but alternatively, that works both ways. We have a Vigil and a Wamai and a Smoke currently in this top floor. Again, nothing too unique over here. Smoke is making these rotates, enabling players to play on this first floor, on the second floor as well, to deny that Vert that you talked about, to deny that offensive pressure. But when you are spread out like this, you allow yourself to protect yourself against things like that, things like oppressive map pressure, but you are then spread out. What is Kitten Queens going to do if Strike X goes for something more aggressive? Looking at this right now, just, hypothetical, it might not happen. What happens if, and we have a team kill, I think that was taking out a default camera? That's so unfortunate. That's not what you want to see, especially the Buck and Monty is going to fall in the chaos with the diffuser down. And that is so brutal for Strike X to suffer. You've lost your Monty, which is probably what you need for an execute. You've lost a third player, Dokubi. You don't know where the roamers are, and you've lost your Buck, and you've lost your diffuser. The round has just started, but it might have just come to an end. Maverick and Osa need to group up and hopefully get a couple kills here. I really don't know if it's enough.
Oh man, no, I'm not gonna lie, not a good start for Strike X. A team kill followed up with Montaigne being removed out of the question, and Adriella still being alive and kicking is going to cause a major threat for the side of Team Strike X. And once again, boss, your powerful weapon in mid range, a chance of an instant down, a powerful weapon to have. It's going to be much more difficult for Strike X, so there's definitely going to take some time with it. The OSA sheets could definitely help. The Maverick is still alive, which means that they still have the power for a hard breach. And the best thing about the gadget from the Maverick is that you can still use that gadget to destroy deployable shield. Now that is actually really good, especially on a very difficult situations. But you need to make sure that you're very close in range in order for that to happen, because the range of it is very low. But I would say the
One thing I
sad
want to
part is that the
comment on
default. Yeah, please continue. Yes.
is the way that Kitten Queens has come alive here, and they're going to shut down the final player of Strike X. But just take a look at that. As soon as these numbers whittled down, as soon as the intel was gone, Kitten Queens did exactly what they needed to do. They came online. The roamers from the bottom floor moved up. They spread out. They considered their new objective. And if something like that happens again, and I really hope it doesn't for the sake of Strike X, but just watch the rotation and the movement of Kitten Queens. That was absolutely amazing, and that was exactly what they needed to do. As soon as they discovered the position of Strike X, as soon as they realized the diffuser was down, as soon as they had the map control they needed, the defenders on site rotated up to protect the diffuser, to spread out, to make it oppressive. They said, we are not going to give you an inch, let alone let you take a mile. They denied any hope of Strike X even securing 1 or 2 extra kills, which can snowball, lead up into these bigger victories. And that's exactly what you need to do. Too many teams, so many teams in a situation like that would leave one person holding diffuser. That's a 1v2. That's a situation where Strike X could have killed, could have whittled down the numbers. A 1v2 that leads to a situation that was unlosable suddenly becoming losable, and that's exactly what you need to do. Kitten Queens recognized the change in that situation. They came online, they rotated up, and I understand that it's not a huge accomplishment to win specifically a 5v1 or 5v2 suddenly, but better teams have lost situations and circumstances like that, and they did exactly what they needed to. And we're going back to the site again. This lounge pressure been hopefully stopping them from coming in, and we're likely going to see IT Vet to try and clear out some of these players. But the Nitro Cell will ensure that all members of Kitten Queens remain safe and alive in the midst of Strike X's death.
Yeah, and that to an important pick as well here, ticked off, because they've removed out the Maverick, which means they don't have any other hard breach capabilities that is currently present for the attackers, which means the hard walls are as safe as it can be. But turns out they might have found a solution here. Yellow being down for the count, as Bucks will be able to, secure that headshot. Able to ensure that the roam games won't be present, which means that the site will be opened up, but not for long. 2 kills back to back at the hands of Team Kitten Queens on a 3v2 situation. Now, this will cause for dangers, but Demos' information could be helpful, but it's a double-edged sword. And what is this response though from Cavi? A simple peek with the SMG-12 and an instant headshot is going to force Strike X on a 1v3 situation, all up to Blixby. Information has been given. This time it is Malusi's location being given away, but instant cancel will be made because you don't want to give away the location of your own position, because like I said, a double-edged sword. At least on the bright side, one information is present. Now, in a span of 1 minute, what can Blixby do in this situation though? It's 1v3. Ellie is very low on HP. Of course, the second information will be given as well, and I believe that information is very close, so cancels will be made. Push a little bit slowly towards on the side itself, but a single grenade could at least flush out one of the players. But yeah, information for 2 of the players were given, but not Melusi though. She was able to freely, dodge in all those information, get the final kill, and with it, Kitten Queens 3 massive victories on defense, and for Strike X, not a single one to respond.
course, Kitten Queens has started off the first half of this game incredibly strong, but they have lost leads like this before. They need to keep calm under this pressure. They need to continue furthering their lead and ensure that it stays throughout the side half. Of course, alternatively, StrikeX is looking to close this gap. Kitten Queens have shown their cards, they've shown their strategy, they've shown how they're going to set up. However, despite this fact, they've shown all of their cards and they've shown how they're going to set up and how they're going to play, and StrikeX needs to respond to that. However, Kitten Queens might be looking to change up things a little bit, modify exactly how they're going to approach things, and I think that that would be the correct decision. And we'll see exactly how they handle it. And we do see a couple of responsive changes to StrikeX. We see the floor as a great way to clear a degree of utility, maybe something that StrikeX is quite fearing, especially since Kitten Queens had such an oppressive presence in the previous rounds, protecting not only their players but their utility as well. That being said, they replaced the Thatcher, which isn't all too surprising given the existence of the Maverick, and we saw that Thermite also going out. If Maverick is able to get this IT breach wall open, if Flores is able to clear all relevant utility, this could potentially be a powerful round for StrikeX, but not if they lose someone immediately. Ica has shown up in a huge way with Kitten Queens throughout all of these games, and immediately that spawn peak is going to be so disastrously for the side of StrikeX. Losing someone to a team kill, losing someone to a spawn peak, losing people early is such a difficult thing to come back from. Fortunately, it's the Dokkaebi, which means not a lot of critical utility is lost on the side of StrikeX, but they will definitely feel the pain, and Flores isn't able to clear out the utility on that IT wall, but is able to force Womai a little bit back into a precarious position. If they're able to get a kill on Annika now that she's cornered, it could be very powerful, but it all depends on this Maverick.
Yep. Like very smooth, removal of the hard breach from the Maverick. Once again, impacts from Adriella. This will definitely cause a lot of problems from StrikeX's side. Knowing that the Vigil is present, they have no other choice but to go downstairs and try to take out Vigil as best as possible. But aggression will be met, and looks like the attackers have figured out a way to find the opening. One kill will be made, so is the second from the Blackbeard, taking out Taras. Once again, the third from Saint Shift, which means the entire site has been cleaned up. They are prepped and ready with the post plant. And for Kitten Queens, Mancan advantage not in their hands, so it's a 2v4 situation. SMG-12 in hand. Adriella, what would be her response? Well, it's Rivet once again with a double kill. 1v4, Annika all by herself, and a 1v4 situation. Post plant will be met, and with it, problems will arise from the side as StrikeX will finally put a response to themselves. A really great run out. A first headshot will be delivered from Dip Morgan, but a lot of work that needs to be done in this 3, and unfortunately it's not gonna happen. Rivet once again will secure the kill, and with it, round number 3 will be in the hands of Team StrikeX.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, we just talked about that. Kitten Queens have had these leads before, but they need to stay on top. They need to be wary of what happens when they show all of their cards, and despite losing Dokkaebi, StrikeX really excellently played off each other. They were in position. They were where they needed to be. They cleared out everyone that they needed to do. They took map presence, they took space, and they were able to execute perfectly fine, clear out those defenders on the side of Kitten Queens. Of course, this isn't the end of the world for Kitten Queens. Their game and their run is far from over, but they do need to understand why they lost, and they do need to make these critical decisions to ensure that they don't lose this lead. We don't see anything utility-wise difference on the side, any major utility changes on the side of Kitten Queens, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do everything exactly the same, and hopefully they don't do everything exactly the same. In contrast, we don't see a Dokkaebi anymore from the side of StrikeX, but it does look like we might have a Lion once again, going back to that trend of really wanting to clear out these roamers. I think that StrikeX is frankly really terrified of the aggressive roam presence that Kitten Queens has been taking. Honestly, that's fair enough. You know, especially I can't understate the performance that all of these players have done, but especially Annika and Tella. Their roams and their map control and their post plant playing has been absolutely wonderful. And hopefully, on the side of Strike X, bringing this Lion will allow them to really shut down the oppressiveness of these players. And we see them a little bit more cautiously now approaching the buildings, looking for these spawn peaks, making sure that they don't lose important people earlier. And once again, a pretty standard approach to things, preparing on that rafters window for a jump in, of course, having to contend with blue. If you can get this control over here, which Tala is somewhat attempting to deny, you can jump into rafters at the same time that you take pressure around IT Breach, and you can instantly claim all of rafters, but it doesn't look like that is Kitten Queen's intention right now. It seems like they just want to fight. They might be going for a shallow blue hold. If this Monty can walk up on this Malusi after they get IT pressure, after they flush all of these defenders into their corners, this might be a very, very difficult to contend with attack on the side of Strike X if Kitten Queens don't respond, but Annika, Turla, and Kavi will all come online at the same time and shut down the attack with surgical precision.
Yep, surgical precision and true marksmanship. Blixby, well, one will be met. Still a lot more to go, though, for the side of Team Strike X. It's a 1v4 situation. The GT36C is a very powerful weapon, but you still got to worry about multiple lines of sight. And with it, we'll be able to see, from the side of Team Kitten Queen, secure yet another defensive round. And I believe a role swap could be in effect. No, it's round number 6. After round number 6, a role swap will be met in play. So the site will be on basement, tank, and assembly. And I have to say, from the side of Team Strike X, the breach is happening well. The drone works with the information game, that is also working well as well. But the problem is, especially when it comes to taking out the roamers, like especially Annika and of course Taylor, I would say that for Strike X, they've been having some major mishaps. Not being able to secure that important kills definitely brings in much more difficulties and much more easier, situations for Kitten Queens to end up on a massive 4-1 lead here in the first half itself. So highly likely chances where a 5-1 could be a possibility, but I still have hopes for Strike X, and I'm pretty sure that this round itself could bring, the fate. I mean, it could bring, the important aspects of what's going to happen here.
Absolutely, and honestly, I understood what Strike X was trying to do there in that last round, and I don't necessarily think that that was the wrong strategy. Inherently, it was the wrong strategy to do against this team. Kitten Queens has been a team that has been oppressive in their roams and dominant in their collapses, and I think that funneling your players for such a narrow execute like that without clearing might have worked against other teams, but not against Kitten Queens, and that collapse was brutal. Once again, we're going back to something a lot more stock standard, starting over on the top side, making sure that you have garage control. What exactly they're going to finish with is partially unclear though, because as you can see, there's no Maverick, there's no hard breach. There's secondary hard breach gadgets, but there are no of these main hard breach that you generally see trying to get that main wall. Tala is going to get an early pick on the Ash, and Annika's Nitrocell is finding the buck. Denying this much soft destruction is incredibly problematic for a team trying to take control of a basement site. And I was going to say, if Kavi stays alive for a bit longer, they're able to get one more pick. This could be round over for this game. But that pick is going to keep their hopes and dreams alive. Vivid is going to stay alive, but not for long as Annika shuts it down. It's a 3v2 now. But look at how much utility that Strike X has gotten. They might finally end Annika, but they have a minute 30. They have limited utility. They have no soft destruction. They have one hard breach gadget and they have a frag grenade between them. They can't open the hatch. They can't plant for Animus. They have to go down the stairs and they have to win their gunfights. And we have a mirror and a smoke, 3 canisters in pocket. This is perfect to deny plant. This is perfect to waste time. You need to contend with the mirrors, but you don't have an Ash and you have 1 frag grenade. They're desperately trying to recover with Vert with the shotgun, but they still need to execute against sight. And this is something that is extremely difficult to do. Every second they spend on the top floor is a second they have less for executing.
Yeah, I mean, currently they're establishing vertical lines of sight to try to flush out the players towards the side itself, but I don't think that's going to work out because currently they're just wasting a lot of time. But hopefully, with the vertical lines of sight that they've placed right towards the control room, maybe they can find an opening. Nope, it's gone. It's 1v2, and for Dip Morgan, it is a very difficult task for her to proceed in the situation. Not a lot of time left, 15 seconds. The legs will give away the positioning of Gridlock. Very low on HP. And with it, Kitten Queens, I would say that they shouldn't have any problems dealing with it unless and until Dip Morgan might get a headshot out of nowhere from that wallbang. Maybe not. Kitten Queens, once again, round number 6 be in their favor. And with it, the first half comes to an end with a massive 5-1 lead on defense.
Absolutely. I mean, that hole was just always going to be difficult to take. You had a smoke with 3 canisters in pocket. You had the mirrors up. All Kitten Queens had to do was wait and hunt down their prey, and that's exactly what they did. It was just something that they couldn't contend with, and it looks to see like there might be an issue with the game bans. I'm not quite sure what has happened, but maybe there's a little bit of siege bugginess, but who knows? Regardless, you're going to have the Deimos being banned, and we're going to have a shadow ban appear and disappear. Who knows what's going on? But all we do know is we've got a bandit and we've got a Deimos currently banned, and we'll see what happens next. And we've got the mirror and the park, and then. Okay, I don't entirely know what has happened with the bans, but we do now finally, I think, have the bans that are in place. And shutting down the Deimos definitely could have been... Oh, it might have been the case that these bans aren't accurate because it looks like we're going to a rehost. But regardless, if you're on the side of Kitten Queens, you're understanding, hey, look, we need to make sure that we stay on top of everything, we don't lose our lead, and we just do it right until the end. But of course, if you're on the side of Strike X, you want the opposite to happen. Kitten Queens is in a precarious position in the sense that having a round advantage like this encourages you to maybe be a little bit more confident, maybe too confident, and teams have lost leads in tremendous ways all of the time, and that's something they need to be cognizant of. But at the same time, having that round buffer is also a type of confidence in a good way. If you lose a couple of rounds, you know for a fact that you still have the opportunity to come back. Meanwhile, StrikeX is really on the wire. They have a single round buffer between them and a loss. After they lose a single round on the swap half, they don't have any more options to make mistakes. And that's something that's going to be in their heads and a tremendous part of their mental. They need to understand that they are good players and they need to stay in the game and they need to not let it get to their head. But in contrast, Kitten Queens also needs to realize, look, we had 2 game losses before, but that doesn't matter. We are winning and we are performing, and that is all that matters, and they need to come out strong at these crucial final rounds, and I do believe that they can. I know that round swaps have ruined them in these previous 2 games, but I think that they have the capability to do so, and I hope that they believe that they have the capability to do so, because that's a key thing about these games is your mental and your perception. It's such a tremendous factor.
Yep. I mean, this even includes on every single esports titles, right, TikTok? Because the thing about in every FPS games is that especially for a player. You need to make sure that your mental health as well as your play style needs to be as calm as possible, and of course having patience and endurance is definitely the key on gaining victory on multiple matches. And talking about the current state between Team Kitten Queens and StrikeX, sure, StrikeX have at least secured one of the attack rounds, but the rest of it, Team Kitten Queens have secured a lot of rounds where the early round were definitely in their advantage. On every single time we did get to see either they get picked out from spawn peaks, or it was just some simple runouts, or maybe they were trying to catch out one of the roamers that were running around. And I can clearly see that the attackers were having quite a lot of rough time dealing with that situation. But all in all, hopefully, once the rehost comes to an end and once we continue with the second half, maybe we'll be able to see StrikeX make their own response on the second half on Nighthaven Labs. Maybe we could see their defensive playstyles being in play, and for Kitten Queens, sure that they have lost two matches up against Team Wildcard Queens and Team A7, but I would say that the third match is looking promising. But you'd never know. StrikeX already did had a matchup with Team Wildcard Queens just previously, and it did ended up on an OT match point on 7-7. So highly likely a chance that StrikeX could deliver a comeback, but you'd never know once we take a look at the game itself.
I think that's a really interesting thing. I kind of alluded to it, and that's the thing with these playstyles, is it's almost like a game of rock paper scissors. This isn't a idea that a team is better than another team objectively in all situations. It's an idea of what teams can actually match. Strike X was able to bring out such a close game throughout the game when it came to Wildcard and Wildcard Queens, a team that really, really showed up in a big way in contrast against Kitten Queens, who now are showing up in a big way against Strike X. And this isn't like some great, controversial, unique upset. At its core, what is happening is Kitten Queens, their playstyle, they cannot adapt and they cannot match Wildcard Queens. And Strike X, their playstyle, they cannot adapt and they cannot match Kitten Queens in contrast. And these uniqueness and these variants in playstyles are so important to consider because, like I said, if you look at round differential and you went and you saw these matches, you'd be like, oh, Strike X went to double OT against Wildcard Queen. Surely they would win against Kitten Queens, but that hasn't happened. Of course, that being said, fingers crossed, you don't want to jinx anything. The game is not over, and that's the most important things about these games, is the game is not over until it's over. You could be 10 seconds left at match point, but that matters not if someone pulls out a tremendous clutch. These games are anyone's games until they're finalized. And Kitten Queens needs to understand that and show up in a big way and not ban out too quickly. Finish the game strong. You had a tremendous beginning. Do it right. And in contrast, Strike X is looking to do everything in their power to disrupt that.
Yep. Kitten Queens, sure, they might be in lead right now in 5-1, but Strike X, I believe that they still have an opportunity to fight back. Sure, the way how it worked on Nighthaven Labs didn't quite worked out well in their favor, but hopefully with the rehost coming to an end, resuming back our second half 5-1, Kitten Queens, they'll be the ones on attack. So hopefully, let's see how well it works out for them.
Absolutely, and here we're going to have hopefully bans that go exactly how everyone wants and don't have an error, but we shall see in just a few seconds. It seems like they haven't decided just yet. And the first rounds of bans will be Kite and Montagne. Monty, well, Kaid, we already saw that happening. The Monty ban, however, shields have been incredibly problematic throughout all of these games that we've seen today. So it's not entirely, that weird. But Blackbeard is still currently on the table. We'll see if he's still around a bit longer and he lives another day. We see a Bandit and a Maverick ban, back to that idea of hard breaching. I don't know what has just happened. It seems like the bans have disappeared once again. But no matter, I think the teams are aware of the teams. I think the teams are aware of what the bans are, and hopefully they just keep that in mind. So for the people that can't see that anymore, we had Mav, we had Monty, we had Bandit, and we had. Do you remember the last band? It's just
Yeah, I think it's
Kai, that's
Bandit
right.
and Maverick. Yeah, I believe
Bandit,
Maverick and
Hyde and
Montaigne was
Monty.
for-
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, Maverick
That's
and sometimes at this point we just have to like there's a memory game. Like I'm not really good at memory games. It's like the band phase itself. It's like they're just giving us like a certain question. It's like, all right, now you know the bands, right? Now guess which operators. And I'm like, oh no. Like I failed in memory test before.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure I have no clue about it. But yeah, jokes aside, I would say I
If
believe
you see a frost map,
Maverick and
though,
Montaigne.
which will be potentially very
Mhm.
interesting, on that window for that jump in. Now, while we didn't quite see it truly manifest from beginning to end, that makes sense. Like I very briefly talked about this type of attack, the idea that you sort of walk up to this rafters doorway next to IT breach, you open IT breach so you get that map pressure, you have a player playing next to rafters ready for that window jump in, you execute at the same time on the rafters player, you take IT control, you execute through into the A site once you've opened the breach and you get the plant down. It's a very, very fast and not an uncommon attack, and I think that it seems StrikeX is a little bit worried about Kitten Queens doing exactly that, and from the positioning, it doesn't seem like that was something that was a dumb thing to worry about, but it doesn't seem like something that they're actually going to do. And StrikeX will get a early pick onto Kitten Queens, taking out the ace. This is potentially not the greatest thing to do because Ace still had utility in pocket, so that isn't looking super nice for the side of Kitten Queens. But of course, they still had the Thermite, and Ace got the wall open that he needs to do. If the Thermite rather is able to still open ID Breach, the only loss that Kitten Queens might have meaningfully faced is the loss in numbers, and they will face yet another loss in numbers, but their utility is still up. That being said, you can only lose so many numbers, and you're now in that 2v5 situation. Thermite and Thatcher, a notorious duo, but can they close it out? They have the utility to make an entrance into sight, but the smoke playing in E-Box can contest them, they can collapse on them, and that's exactly what StrikeX are looking to do. Look at all of these players moving to get ready for a collapse. Kitten Queens are going to have to win a number of gunfights all at the same time, and we're about to see it all happen all at the same time.
Yeah, the Thatcher Thermite duo is still in effect for Kitten Queens. But for StrikeX, every single operator are still available, prepped and ready, and waiting for the attackers to make their move. A lot of time's been wasted around, so 40 seconds, and for Kitten Queens, I would say it's not going well, especially on their attack side. And I would say a flawless round will be in effect for StrikeX. Winning their defensive round on round number 7 will make sure to put themselves an extra point on defense, 5-2. And I believe their next course of action would be to defend on the basement site, tank, and assembly. I believe Scopos will be an interesting one to be, will be an interesting operator to be seen from the side of Blixby. Vigil, Legion is present. And the thing about Scopos is that the best thing about Scopos as an operator is that you can quickly rotate and basically have two types of, drones that can basically help you either be on site or you can be on roam. So basically, you have a choice whether you could, be there. But the best part about Scopos is that you can basically it's a teleport ability at this point. You can just either go from one drone to another drone, and it's a really good ability to have. But of course, each and every operators have their own ups and downs. And bringing Scopos in would definitely be an interesting one to look at, especially on a map like Night Haven. For StrikeX, I would say that desperate times calls for desperate measures because they really need multiple wins in order for them to get back up on track.
Absolutely, and I think that is why they are doing these these, like you said, bringing the scope as something that seems somewhat a little bit Hail Mary, trying to see what works, trying to keep them on their toes, going for spawn peaks like the Vigil with the Boss D over here. They're really just looking for everything they can do, hopefully trying to collapse on the side of Kitten Queens. And we see Kitten Queens all amalgamating on this window. And I was about to make a comment about the fact that Nomad being swapped out for the Ace implies that they're trying to go for more aggressive, more rush style playstyle. I think that's exactly what we're going to see here. Vigil will have to fall back, but he stays alive. If they're able to kill this Vigil player, they could take stock in just a few seconds. They don't have to worry about being flying for a while, and they can take sight potentially, but every second they spend is a second that StrikeX has to reposition. We still have the Scopers. We have 3 defenders on the first floor that could all collapse down on the side of Kitten Queens. Kitten Queens is currently surrounded, but if they're able to take sight, all of a sudden, StrikeX's map control becomes their weakness as they're forced to recontest, but they haven't got the diffuser down yet. They're getting kill after kill, but they haven't got it onto sight just this moment, and this is exactly what they needed to do. This map pressure, Animus control, taking over Nano, planting behind Pillar. Look at this, StrikeX all of a sudden has given an inch and a mile. The Nitro cells will fly out, the kills will come out, but they need to push onto Diffuser. The onus has swapped onto the defenders. One more falls, Blackbeard is going to waste all the time in the world, and that last sliver, last remaining member of StrikeX, of Kitten Queens is going to be all they need to take it to 6-2, to match point, to padding their victory even more and getting even closer. And that is exactly what Kitten Queens needs to do. They need to continue to come out on strong. They got the diffuser down, they turned the game, they made this asymmetric game that's defender-sided into an attacker's game. They got the diffuser down and they held it. It was close, it was down to the wire, but that doesn't matter. If you win with 5 people alive and you win with 1 person alive, you get the same amount of points. And here we have, looks like a very similar lineup on the side of StrikeX. And honestly, I don't blame them. They got caught very, very off guard by Kitten Queen's aggression, by their quick execute. And maybe they're saying, look, we're going to do it right this time. Maybe they are confident in their setup, in their strategy. And we'll see if they were right to do that.
Yep. StrikeX, I would say that once Kitten Queen's aggressive attempts were made from the window, I mean, that was pretty much it. They had control on the stairs. Most importantly, so the entire Animus control were in the hands of Kitten Queens. And once they had control of it, it was all done and dusted. Post Plant was present, and StrikeX once again losing another round, forcing Kitten Queens on an important match point. It is 6-2, which means that the round difference for this matchup will be massive for the side of Team Kitten Queens. Yeah, match point is in. So is Kitten Queens' progression towards the attack. And I believe when it comes to the operator specs, we have a blitz being picked up. The hard breach will always be in effect, especially towards the basement side. Shouldn't have any problems, but yeah, there will be some slight problems because mainly you have the Tuberow's gadget, basically that would put things to a halt, especially for hard breach for a quite period of time. But when it comes to the frags, it will be Terror once again. Opening frag it is. Sweet 4 down for the count. And with it, the first frag being in favor for Team Kitten Queens. And for StrikeX, massive problems as Annika comes in yet again to take out both of the important players.
Absolutely, 2 picks straight away is extremely, extremely powerful. It looked like they were going for a rush, but it seems like they chilled out, and this could be really beneficial for them. Smoke has already burned 2 of their canisters. The Malusis are being cleared. Tuberau no longer has access to have wall-denying capabilities, and that's exactly what you want to see. This has been perfect from the side of Kitten Queens. Immense aggression, force out all their utility, and then calm down. Make them use up their time because it's a resource. They know they have the time in the world to just sit there and wait and burn out all of these resources, and now all of a sudden they have a minute on the board. They have a 5v3 turned into a 5v2. There's no utility to stop them. The Blitzkrieg will take space, but unfortunately a team kill will make things slightly more winnable, but it's a 3v1. Malusi has no information, no utility, and the plant is down. That has changed this into attacker's game. She needs to get a kill to open this up. The Kitten Queens are playing together. They're not seeking this final kill. They're staying strong, and they will take the first victory in this tournament. And exactly as we said, it doesn't matter that StrikeX was able to go double overtime to a team that did so well against Kitten Queens. At the end of the day, all that matters is that Kitten Queens won. It doesn't matter why they won, how they won, and it is a well-deserved win for some immense siege. Both teams played incredibly powerfully, but every single game has a victor, and this victor is Kitten Queens.
Yep. Kitten Queens, once again, after two massive losses with Wildcard Queens and A7, Kitten Queens have managed to win their important matchup up against Team StrikeX, making sure to put themselves on the third spot as we take a look at the entire board as well, with Team Arrival 7 female currently on 6 points, and also on the top of the leaderboard. Meanwhile, Wildcard Queens on second place, a total of 5 points, and the score differences -4 and -5 for Kitten Queens, and of course StrikeX. So yeah, all of it, that is all 3 matches on stream B done and dusted. And I have to ask, out of all the matches that we've casted right now, I do need to ask a question for you, TikTok. Which was the best moment that you did get to see, and which was the one that was really memorable?
Honestly, I really think it was their last game. You know, we saw Kitten Queens try out 2 completely different techniques in the first 2 games, and they were punished for it. They were absolutely punished for it. To see them find out what works and to keep their resolve for a whole game, I'm so glad that I got to watch it, that I got to cast that. That was a tremendous performance on the side of Kitten Queens. Of course, all teams did play immensely powerfully. Kitten Queens, they took their advantage and they held it, and they didn't let that initial round win turn into a slippery slope of losses. They held their victory and they played that strongly to the end. Even on that last round, when they secured a 3v1, you know, they didn't get cocky. They stayed there. They held their angles. No one ran after that last play on StrikeX. They said, we have a job to do and we're going to do it correctly, and that's exactly what you have to do in something like this, and they did it.
Yep. And with that, Kitten Queens, they will be happy about this progress. Winning up against Team StrikeX, once again, as we take a look at the updated standings as well. Kitten Queens on second place, Wildcard Queens on third. It mainly had to deal with the score differences, if I recall right. But yeah, all in all, amazing match that we did get to cast, and of course, I'm really fortunate to be, casting. So once again, huge shout out for Cracked Media and Arrival 7 Esports for sponsoring this event, and of course the broadcasters, the admins who've been working day and night to ensure that this tournament would be a success, making sure that everything is working under control and without any major issues. But yeah, all in all, let's also take a look at the video as well.
I just want to quickly add though, before this game started, we were talking about what Kitten Queens has to do to make sure that they get out of that crucial bottom position, that bottom seed, and now they're sitting pretty second. I know it's only been 1 day of play day, but they showed up in a good, we were just talking about what they had to do to get off the bottom of the leaderboard, and now they're second. They're sitting at 6 points. They're tied in points, not in round differential, but they're tied in points with Arrival 7.